Pre-COVID, it was said that 50% of our students are coming to us with some form of anxiety, something happening, right, in their life. Latest data is that we're nearing close to 70% of our students. Nod if you can kind of agree with that, right? You know, and maybe a thumbs up, right? You know, we're looking for like a choral response. There's no question, right? And I think for any one of us, as good humans, there is things happening, right? And so last time I was here, I talked about, you know, repeat a few things, right? It's okay to repeat, because I tell you what, if you're like me, there's a lot of things that I forget. You know, I forget a lot of things. But we will ask, you know, not what's wrong with you, like what is wrong with you, right? You should have been here at 8 o'clock. Come on now, right? But it's more like what happened? What is the journey? What's the story? So for Indian time, folks, it's, yes, in honor and regards, a little grace. We want our elders, we want our folks to be able to get here. And once we kind of have the stage set, and what we say is in good spirit, right? We'll get started then. As you can see, we got the whole crew here, right? You got $1 million crew here getting us hooked up here. Even the connectivity has a little bit of a challenge this morning, right? You know? So emotionally, everybody, let's just take a deep breath, hey? You know? If you're waiting for an Amazon shipment, I'm not sure if it's gonna come today. I should project, and I'm not trying to make light of it because it is actually pretty scary and serious. I did have 4 jackknifed semis on the way here. The irony is that they were all on the other side of the road. They were going west. And so had any one of those been on the trail that I was coming, as I come from Fargo, I'd likely still be on the road, right? So it just so happened, I was fortunate, or was I? Right? I want to believe that your invitation from your superintendent who's here, and all of you, that we somehow make it a way, right? I'm also very crafty, and so I know I use maps quite a bit, and I'm all over it. I'm all over the 511. If you haven't received that app, you should download it on your phone. You know, the 511 app, it tells you all the roads, conditions, latest, all of those things. But what I ended up doing is I saw that it was just pure yellow all the way here. Road covered, of course. And we know where we live, folks. We know our neck of the woods. This is part of what we have been, let's just say, born into here. And Fergus Falls, we're not immune to any of that. Give your colleagues a round of applause. Look at, we are there here, folks. How about that? Huh? And, you know, so no question, today was a challenge getting here. And I want to welcome your colleagues that are making their way in. Deeply honored, folks, to be standing in front of you. I understand the stress as well that we have. A lot of us probably, you know, I was in your chair for a good chunk of time there, Jeff, and I'm sure you received every thought. Holy man, is school on, is school not, right? I got those emails too last night from your champion that I connect with here, Krista Simongard, right? You know, and folks, that's just a tough place. There's a lot that goes into those things, and we're just deeply honored that you made your way here. And I want to welcome our colleagues again. Thank you for being here. We're slowly kind of budding up here to our beginning. Just a deep honor, folks. And as I talked about some stress earlier, we're not quite there. We almost got there, brother. Look at it. What's that? Oh, somebody else connected and kicked me out. Okay, so I told everybody, I told Krista to send it out to you guys to bring your cell phones. Okay, so hopefully you got your cell phone and a device. If you don't have a computer device, don't worry about it. You'll be able to do everything that I'm going to talk about today on your cell phone. Yeah, we're going to kind of dig in with some of that too. We're going to talk about, and I'm not sure where your district is at with AI. You know, it's a scary place, you know, when it first came out, you know, Chat GPT and all of those things. We're going to do a little bit of that to help us as educators dig in. Because as you're all aware, how many teachers in the house? Raise your hand, teachers, all licensed teachers. You are all required by law to infuse Native content into the program. So, right? You know, oh boy, required by law. Your licensure also requires that you receive training in Dakota and Anishinaabe content. And you're required to infuse this thing into your work. I got my hand up right now because I'm probably, again, just like you, I need to lower it because what does that even look like? Right, you know, so we're gonna ask AI a little bit today to give us a little assist. And because I'm here to tell you that the state isn't ready yet either. Neither are the tribes. So the law, as we all love it, eh, Jeff? You know, we love that the legislators, again, tell us what we should be doing, you know. But at the same time, we'll talk a little bit about that law and unpack a few more things. Again, I'm just buying as much time here as we welcome your colleagues. I want them to feel our opening. Okay? If you haven't already, I want to create a place of belonging for you. Because if I'm going to ask you to do anything, folks, and I appreciate the feedback, by the way, from January, and I appreciate it even more, I shouldn't say even more, but to have a connection with your students here on Indigenous Peoples Day, that second Monday of October that happens in every calendar year. To be in this room full of students, like it was something else. It was, for those of you that were able to be in here, it was a treasure being with your students. And then to have them, you know, literally kind of come right into me, right? Huddle into me, and barely was able to leave the building. That says something about what they heard and how they connected with what I shared. There'll be a spiritual-like connection today, a mindful connection, and one that I, again, want to invite you with, using my voice, to be kind and gentle, to have you, let's just say, have me earn and re-earn your respect here, folks. Welcome, folks. You're right on time. Perfect. You're perfect. Because that's what we do. You see, when we create that environment, as you're all aware, it's part of your strategic plan here. Creating belonging for your students. That is the magic, folks. That's, you know, attendance rates go up, graduation rates go up, performance in your class goes up, connectivity, behavior referrals go down, like all of the things that we look at to not just evaluate our school performance, but reflect on our school. All of those, right, matrices as they call them, we can go back to one primary piece, that relationship piece, how we create that belonging. And for you all today, you get another go with Native American best practices. And again, I'm very honored, folks, as this is my company, and I'm gonna remind us of the motto that what is good for Native American people and students is good for everybody, right? And that's the comfort level that I wanna reach you with here today. On a day that, oh my goodness, right? You know, we're gonna remember the first snowfall, like we do every year. The challenges, right? You know, I'm sure hitting the roads, the fear, like it was scary today, right? How do we work with that? Because you have learners that have that same feeling every single day when their eyes wake up. Every day, many of your learners wake up the same way that you all did today, getting out there, getting your kids to care, right? Wondering about your partners, and then getting on the road, that glare ice. I think I saw 4 or 5 cars in the ditch just as I got off 88. I saw one trash can that looked like it had been dragged for 100 yards, you know, on the side, on the right. I don't know any of you that drive that same route. It was treacherous, right? And yet here you all are. How do your learners make it? Eh? What is it that gets your learners to make that connection with this place? Because I felt it coming in here. I had smiles right away. I had recognition. I also had some familiarity with that. Felt good. How do your learners get that every day that they come into this place? Or your places of work? Eh? That's you guys. That's all of you, right? You know, you have folks that are walking in right now that, again, a journey, right? And we can't just simply judge based on a couple of little factoids like, right, 8 o'clock, but it's 8:15. Like, we can't just simply drive that home, what I call guilting, blaming, shaming. That really doesn't do much, folks. So we got to get to the heart of it, of our relation, you know? Keep moving on. And then as we connect with them, we go and we ask that beautiful question, what's going on? Are you okay? Is everything okay? Eh? How is somebody supposed to get everything from you if they're clouded with what you all woke up to today and what you all drove in here with, right? You know, we got to get through that, and that's the humanity for all of you. We're going to unpack a little bit of that today as well as we look at Native American best practices. Applying Native American ways of life, culture, to the exact same things that I just spoke to in English, you know? But we're going to use a cultural way for that. And what I wanted to do today, and I am almost confident, I've only spoken to him once, very briefly today, but I want to invite your superintendent up here. If you would please, Jeff, do me the honor. I'm going to ask Jeff to make a tobacco offering. Okay? Have you ever offered tobacco before? And he has not. Are you a little afraid? How are you feeling about it? You just unsure, right? Uncomfortable, unfamiliar, right? You know, you've never done this before. So folks, as we look at the slide, let's look at the slide, my friend. Tobacco. Two primary uses of tobacco that Native American people, when we gifted this to the world, two primary uses, an offering or an ask. We never intended it to be rolled up into cigarettes, put into vapes or chewing tobacco. In fact, when I work with students, and I worked in Fargo schools and all over the place, to be honest, we used tobacco thousands of times in school, Jeff. And I'd always ask the students this, how many times are we going to smoke tobacco today? They'd all come back with a goose egg. But we use it thousands of times, and we use it in this manner. It's a manner of relating and sending a message, folks. It's a communication to each and every one of you, that the tobacco that I'm going to ask Jeff to offer for all of you today is indeed a way to remind you all that you belong. You are welcome here, right? And it's also a way of saying gratitude without even saying it. Because when we make our offerings, we often don't speak as well. It's a mindfulness piece. It's a conduit for relating that communication, right? So it's communicating with the mind, yes, the spirit, and everything here. All of that bundled up into one here with this tobacco offering. And oftentimes people ask me, Jeff, they say, well, what are you going to do with the tobacco, Ricky? When I leave here today, I'm going to offer it back, and I'll put it usually by a tree. My grandma would always say, put it at the east part of the tree, the base of that tree, because that's where life begins, you know? But it's the intentionality, folks. You all have what you would call routines, rituals, whatever you want to call those, right? I wouldn't necessarily call this a ritual. It might go into the context of that English definition and word, but for us it would be a way of life, eh? Folks, before I left my home today, I smudged at my table. Before I got into my car, I have a little bush right beside my house. I offered tobacco just for a good trip, just to get me here and have a good day. And I have a lot of beliefs, folks, right? But I want to believe that those 4 jackknife semis on the other side of the highway that closed the interstate, basically, I had not one stop all the way here. It is what it is. I'm not, hey, I don't know, but I feel like I know. Sure feels good in that way. And even if I did have a delay, it is what it is. I had Krista's number ready, Jeff had my own, hey, yeah, maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock, hey, Ricky's on the highway, who knows, right? But this is the way it happened. So I'm gonna ask Jeff, and when we offer tobacco, folks, I tell people, just your 3 fingers, maybe your thumb, your pointer, and your middle finger, just grab a little pinch. Again, what's good for Native people is good for everyone. If you ever want a Native speaker in your rooms, call them up, say to them, I want to offer you some tobacco. Would you come and speak to my students? Ricky, I want to offer you some tobacco. Would you come and share with so-and-so? Would you come to the parent committee? Required by law, by the way. Tobacco offering, that's the other part of it, folks, is an ask. I'm going to ask you for some help. It's never this, Jeff. It's never, hey, I want to offer you some tobacco. Let me use that beautiful car of yours for the weekend. Right? We don't use it for that type of personal gain. Rather, it's this respect and mutual way. So, I have a familiar. If you were again in some of my classes, and if you were with me, you would recognize this. This would be laid out every time in this manner. I'd have a tobacco pouch. And I have a birch bark basket here. So if you would just reach in, 3 fingers, gently, slowly, and make your offering, whatever that might be. Go ahead, right in there. Yep, and you're good. There you go. That is it in essence, right there. Round of applause for Jeff, please. Yes, yes. And folks, I have had many people have that same experience. I think about Daryl Stoley. If any of you know Daryl Stoley, right? He's the chair of the education, I think he's kind of retiring now, of the education department at Concordia University right there at Moorhead. And I had him make his first tobacco offering. This is a guy, PhD, right? He helped create Indian education for all in Montana in the 90s. Never had made a tobacco offering. And he's offering me tobacco in front of all of their 4th year teacher students, right? So a room full just like this. And I had him up there and I said, are you shaking in your pants there, Daryl? He goes, I am so scared right now, right? And he made the offering. You see, when you do it the first time, that's how it's gonna be, folks. You're unsure. You heard your superintendent. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm also afraid to make a mistake. I don't want to desecrate, right? So any of you and all of you that raised your hands about being an educator, teacher, and then now saying and hearing the law, the first thing that we get and receive is that we're terrified. We don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to desecrate, right? We want to do it right. We want to do it right. And your superintendent did it perfectly up here, by the way. And I guarantee you, just like Daryl Stoley, because you know what that guy did? He wanted to create partnerships with tribal colleges, right? And so he had a big summit and meeting with tribal colleges, and all of the chairmen, the chiefs of all these tribes were there. And Daryl said to me, you think, Ricky, a tobacco offering would be appropriate? That's your cultural intelligence in action, Daryl. Absolutely. Make sure you speak out loud to the teaching, though. So as you get started, speak out loud to the teaching. And say it, I said to him, out loud to each and every one of those tribal chairmen and leaders of those universities, those tribal colleges. Say out loud, I want to offer you, each of you, tobacco, thanking you all for being here today. And I'm looking forward to our collaboration. Not like, hey, I want to offer you tobacco, let's sign a contract. It's not a quid pro quo like that. It's, let's get connected together in a good way. You see, when we use tobacco that way, I know right away that the person offering it is coming with respect. It ignites something of that type of glory for me when I see that in action. Folks, that teaching is yours. Be mindful though, right? Always speak to the teaching. Speak out loud to where you got the information from. And you're going to see a slide here shortly, your elevator speech, right? Your elevator speech. Again, the longest and tallest elevator that I've been on, oh man, CN Tower I was in Toronto. Big, oh geez, that's a tall building, right? probably still only took 30 seconds to get all the way up there. So your elevator speech is very quick, very poignant, very, saturated with just clear, concise information, right? Here's what I'd like for you to say to your teachings. I was in a training with a guy, an Ojibwe guy named Ricky White, and he talked and he shared about these cultural teachings. I was honored and I respected it, right? And I'm just trying to, do exactly what he said, to try to use it in a good way. However your elevator speech come about, folks, be ready to share those things. Because just like everywhere I go, the rooms look very similar, right? Latest data for education, teachers and educators in the country, 92% of educators are white women. It's a reality, right? If I stretch from Montana to Michigan and look at the educational setting, 98% of the educators are non-native, mostly white. Does that matter? No, absolutely not. The reality, folks, though, is when you get laws like this that say, hey, you gotta use this stuff. What did you learn in your K-12? You learn very little, if anything, right? You will learn even less in your post-secondary about this stuff, right? And then your lived experience, yeah, you didn't, right? Kind of learn about Native ways. You may have had some friends here, there, whatever, but you really didn't grow up this way. And so that is just a factoid. And so part of what I want to do today, folks, is get you comfortable. Your superintendent had unfamiliarity with the tobacco offering. I guarantee you, by the time we're done here, Jeff, on this journey today, 5-hour journey, like 11 o'clock, okay? Okay, all right, folks, right about that time. But as we go on this journey, folks, my confidence is that guy with a Purdue sweatshirt here, oh man, Boilermaker, huh? Oh yeah, I tell you, yeah, pretty good. That you're gonna leave here with a lot of confidence. You're gonna have those 2 thumbs up, that pride for that place and the pride for this. You're gonna have 2 thumbs up with this here. That's my goal. That's my challenge to myself, okay? I wanna make sure that happens. And so that's gonna mean that yes, you're gonna have some storytelling with Ricky, right? I do talk a lot, but I also need you to be doing stuff as well. So there'll be times where you're gonna talk to your elbow partner and you're gonna be comfortable, Ryan, talking to your elbow partner. All right, yeah, we're gonna be good. I know, right? That's so good, I love this. You're gonna have some time with your elbow partners, and we're gonna go through this, okay, here folks today. Because these teachings aren't gonna end. And maybe this is one I actually lit a little bit here today, folks. This is one that I shared last time I was here. And I shared it with all of your students as well. And they too got a little freaked out when you see smoke. My grandma would say, that's the medicine of sage. That's what it looks like. The medicine of sage. That's what it looks like. That's that smoke, guys. And what she would say, just again, a little pinch. I've only got like maybe 4 little pieces of sage here. See, for smudging, folks, it's a mindfulness thing. And like I said, I was kind of stressed out, I was up 5:15 and I'm taking roads, I'm looking at roads. I didn't dare turn the TV on. Lots of stuff that are stressful on TV nowadays. But I sat and I, thought about all of you, and then I needed a little smudge. And you see, folks, when we light that smudge, there's your medicine reaching out. When we smudge, folks, we always typically start with our mind. I want to start thinking good. I want to start maybe igniting some problem solving, some mindfulness, reset my mind, anxiety, like I can already feel it, because because I had a lot of stress leaving. I forgot my wallet, you know. I forgot to take my medication, you know, blood pressure pill, also on metformin, you know. And I'm like, oh, so I got all the way to Barnesville and I realized this. But I'm like, okay, you know, I got Apple Pay, you know, I got Apple Pay. And I know I'm also gonna smudge. Am I gonna get intense today? Oh yeah, you know. But folks, we smudge to reset our minds, reset our eyes. Let's start seeing the good. Let's saturate the good of what we're seeing. It's so easy to get locked into a criticism trap. Real term, Google it, criticism trap. Happens about now. We call it teacher burnout. We get kind of stuck, right? You know, when's Thanksgiving, right? You know, when is that holiday break? Then it'll kind of kick in again. We can look at the calendar as leadership team and say, here's where we need to make sure we're checking in with staff, your self-care, how you doing, right? You know, all your PLCs. Let's talk about some positive things, because we can just get so locked in on distractions and things that are negative, that are impacting you and whatnot. We get sort of stuck there. We forget to look at all the glory. So folks, get intentional, reset your eyes, positive stuff. What I typically say is 3 positives for every negative. In a relationship, this is also in data, there's a lot of elderly couples that folks interview, and their rubric for success and longevity, I'm talking 50-year, 60-year anniversary stuff, they'll say it's 5-to-1. 5 positives for every challenge, right? 5 positives. As much as you can get intentional with that, seek that out. So again, our eyes, our ears in the same context, our ears and our mouth, let's hear good, hear the good things. But in order to get there, we gotta speak good to each other. So when I'm smudging with students, that's the thing that I say to them, you know, you're constantly trying to rage bait and get people to crash out, right? Isn't that what the kids are talking, you know? Let's switch that dialogue. You know, let's speak better. Let's speak nice. That's a good thing. It's healing, right? You know, when you hear my voice, that's how I've spoken to you all since you got in here. I didn't yell at anybody. I didn't guilt, blame, shame, you know. I get it. Things happen. So speaking, hearing. And of course, folks, when you're dealing and working with students like ours here, you would even go dig deeper with your data, there are 2 things, and this is in proof. 2 things, the greatest dropout prevention, the greatest impact that you can have on student performance. There's 2 things that we can be mindful of. One is raising the self-esteem of that learner. Best thing you can do right there. For Native students, that's the number 1 thing you can do, is raise the self-esteem. So what I say is, when I say to students, when you're smudging, smudge your heart. Remind yourself how amazing you are. You are a good person, right? That's why we smudge our heart. The second thing, folks, teacher attitudes. Yeah. How you behave and interact with learners is also a critical piece in how these kids are going to end up. So 1, right, self-esteem. 2, your attitudes, your training. And here's the hardest thing, folks. Even on a day like today, when, hey, I'm with you, the vast majority of us are like, oh man, do I go in? You know, this is terrible out there. You know, why is Jeff having this today, right? He could have canceled it today. Like, we get all of that stuff locked into our heads, right? You know, hey folks, I'm there with you. I got it, you know? We get all of that stuff in there, right? That's what I mean, folks, is that even here, you're all here right now, but are you at 100%? You see, that's the hypocritical oath that we didn't sign as educators, is that no matter what's happening with you, you're still required to be 100% at all times with these kids. No matter if you have stuff going on, you know, recent death in the family, you know, big struggle for me, just being here today, you know. If I came in here saying that to you, that might lower the expectation all of a sudden. You know, I'm not going to allow that to happen. I'm going to be 100% here. I'm going to be full blast here today. Huh? Got stuff going on. We all do. How do you take care of that, folks? This teaching is one that's been around for our people since time immemorial. This way of smudging. It's a good thing. And again, I share this with you all. You can go to walmart.com, type in smudging, and you'll get yourself a copy of this. How many of you went and, last time I was here in January, and checked out Walmart, and went on walmart.com? I think I spoke about it here. But literally, that's where I got this, this beautiful guide, the same as what I just shared with you. Got it at Walmart. Done a lot of shopping at Walmart lately. They have everything, don't they? Walmart's got it all. Man, do they have it all. And they have this good guide for smudging. So, here we go, folks. Your first task, let's get your phones out. You know, QR codes. Holy man, if you don't use QR codes, I tell you, man alive, welcome to the pack here. But everything today, folks, is meant to be shared. Everything. And I mean it, Jeff, when I said that tobacco offering, that teaching is yours. But the only way that we'll actually be comfortable with it is if we use it. You never know the next time you're going to use it, right? But just remember, it's yours. This slide deck is now yours, folks. Just scan the QR code and away you go. So this is everything in here. Take screenshots of any of the pictures and the content. It is yours. I need it to be yours. Because here again, folks, I invite you to put this up on your doors. Put this anywhere that you can. You see, I spoke in Duluth Public Schools since it was just a couple weeks ago. And oh man, there was an auditorium of about 1,000 folks there. And I'll be honest, when I walked into Denfeld High School, what a beautiful school, number one, like a cathedral, a castle. I had a hard time getting out of my car to go into the place. Yeah. It felt like a boarding school to me. And I remember how I was treated in the boarding school. I had a whole line of history that I felt a barrier getting into that school. And then when I walked into the school, they were in professional development, and I think they were in an HR presentation. I don't have any disrespect towards HR, we need them, but they were doing one of those, and so I think the staff were like this, but nobody even looked at me. Nobody smiled at me. It was my first time in with that school, so I'm feeling even more discontent. The only thing that connected me, folks, is as I navigated my way around, I got my way to the front office, and on a placard outside where it said main office, principal's office, the words "Ogima Wigameg" was there. That is the Ojibwe word for the principal's office. On a placard. I all of a sudden had a sense of connection with this place. I felt much more comfortable. Then all of a sudden the Indian Ed staff found me, guy in a braid and looking like this, figured I was Ricky White and going to present, and she already kind of knew who I was and took me to the right place, and I got over myself once that happened. But it took time, folks. These symbols, this again right here is the Native American learning style. And I've shared this with you all before. This is a medicine wheel. Anytime you see a medicine wheel, always start in the east. So that east direction for our people, and this is most learners, we need to see the learning. You have seen a lot already today. Things that have been done right here in Fergus Falls for thousands of years, smudging, a tobacco offering. That's happened for thousands of years right here on this land. And you saw it for your own eyes. Seeing the learning critical. Our learners, show us as much pictures. Show us the right answers. Let us watch you do it. Let's do that a lot of times before you even have me try anything. Feeling it, right? We go around the wheel now clockwise. Feeling it, it's what I did for your superintendent, telling him the nature, the rationale, the importance of what the learning is about, the content. That's your magic there in your storytelling and connecting that learner to what you're sharing with them. And then we got to have them do something with it, right? And that'll happen here today quite a bit as you dig in with things, okay? So have them do something, and then we start to begin to know it. And even then we don't, right? How many of your learners, how many times you go to your learners and say, hey, we just did this 10 times, right? You know, and they're still not getting it? Well, guess what, folks? Do it 11, you know, without question. That's just kind of what happens. 1,000 times, do it 1,001. Because here's what more research tells us, folks. You actually don't start to master anything until you've done it 100 times. Think of that. That's when you're more comfortable. Think of your superintendent having and utilizing a tobacco offering. His 100th time, I guarantee you it's going to be different. Okay? I guarantee you. So right there, folks, take it. Yes. Here's just a little PBIS. I'm also trained with safe and civil schools. So a lot of schools, they use acronyms on how to teach behavior. So for us folks, it's CHAMPS, right? You know, so just be mindful of your conversation. You can text me. I would actually welcome, if you're, you know, don't want to raise your hand and interrupt my stories or whatever, hey, I still invite you to do that. Raise your hand anytime, please ask. Or shoot me a text. I got my phone right here. Activity, I'll direct a lot of it, you know, some cooperative learning, want to have some fun with you all. Movement, you know, please, yes, please, folks, you know, I'll incorporate a break. It's a long time to not have a break here this morning, so once we dig in a little bit, we'll have a break, but if you need to kind of, you know, stand or use the restroom, please, folks, take care of yourself. Participate, right? Take notes actively. You know, again, be mindful of your technology. I know I asked you to bring your phone and laptops, but just as best as you can. I know we're all busy, but let's try to get locked in, as the students would say, and get full on here. You know, I'm hoping 100%, but I know how it is, and of course, be ready. Be ready. You guys got this. I want to affect your behavior, folks, as it comes to Native American content. I want you to behave differently the next time you see a tobacco offering. Meaning you know this, you have been exposed to it, that you feel differently than it was the first time. Because I know, where's our health teachers in here? Health, FIAD teachers? Oh yeah, right back there. They always go a little, you know, wondering when I say tobacco is medicine. You know, like what a, you know, it's like a hyperbole, right? You know, but it's a dichotomy, right? You know, like we all know that it's the worst cancer-causing agent. But for Native people, we call it good medicine. Why? How many times do we smoke it if we use it 1,000 times, my friend? Traditionally. How many times would you smoke it? Yeah, probably none. Probably none. Even in our most deepest cultural way, we would probably smoke it 0 times, you know? It's used primarily as an offering or an ask. FIAD teachers, you should probably, and when I say should, I don't want to tell you how to think, but we should feel a little differently about our traditional use of tobacco now that you've seen it in action, right? That's cultural intelligence. That's your cultural IQ in action. Your behavior is different now. And that's what I want to do here. So these are some of the terms here, folks, that you'll hear today. Cultural IQ, I just spoke. Cultural competence, right? Your knowledge, right? Your attitudes, you know, that enable you to kind of work effectively, respectfully across cultures. Cultural appropriation, that's the scary one, isn't it? You know, because I guarantee you that popped into Jeff's mind when I told him, hey, use tobacco in this way, right? Speak about all these teachings, you know, like we're like, hey, geez, you know, I'm gonna get called out. You know, I'm a white guy, you know, hey, geez, here goes another white guy using our stuff, stealing our stuff. Like, oh, man, that's gonna happen, by the way. Be ready to be called out, folks. I get called out by my own people, right? It is where it's at. And you're gonna hear and feel shortly, probably in the second half of this journey today, on why that is. The disruption and interruption to our own people, to treat our own, probably worse. But you will need to be prepared. And what are you going to say? I need you to be ready with these, folks. Be ready with your elevator speech. And simply say that. I was in a training with an Ojibwe man named Ricky White, and he shared many good teachings with all of our staff. And I really respected and connected with what he shared with us. and one of those was the offering. You see what I mean, folks? That's the best that we can do because it is true. And I'm not looking for credit. I don't need it for ego, folks. I had a beautiful ride today, going 20 miles an hour on 94. It wasn't fun, but I FaceTimed my mom, 83-year-old mom. Hey, Wakiasamok. And I talked to her about this stuff. I talked to her about all of these things. I said, this is what I ultimately want to impact this amazing staff at Fergus Falls, is I want to impact your behavior. I want you to feel good about what you learned today. And I told her the rationale on why. That the manner in which I'm sharing it with you folks is not credentialed from any outside organization or university. I didn't get any of the knowledge I'm sharing with you from any outside place. It comes straight from the people. Straight from my ancestors, my uncles, my aunties, my grandparents. The manner in which I was born and have lived in this beautiful place that we call life. That's where this information is coming from. The vast majority. Yeah, I've got some academia. We need to put that in there too. But the majority of the way that I'm speaking to you all is by intention and by design. Okay? I know it's not easy just sitting in a chair, which is why I need to get you moving a little bit. Elevator speeches, very critical. Here you go, folks. Here you go. Let's get into it. 10 to 9. At 10 to 9, you all were reintroduced to the law. Get your phones out. Get your phones out and just highlight this thing. Oh my goodness. Here we go. Here we go. Minnesota Indian Education for All Law. Senate File 1905. Signed into law in 2023. Okay? Mary Kunesh, Senator Mary Kunesh, put it into law. And the document you have right now is this guy, right here. I'm going to pull it up. So you have this document. You see all the sections in here. Standards development, Indian education for all students. Directs the commissioner to provide resources and support for the implementation of Indigenous education for all students. Provide historically accurate resources. American Indian mascots prohibited. Section 5. How about that? War Road Warriors. Forever. They had to petition or apply to keep their name. Okay? And that is the process now today. Okay? It is what it is. But if you were somebody like me, it really doesn't feel good when your culture is misrepresented in a way. Huh? You know, and I shared this last time. I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan just because I like the way Patrick Mahomes play ball. You know, I'm not a Swiftie, right? You know, so Travis Kelce, a lot of fans that way, you know. I don't mind her music, you know. I shouldn't say that too loud because my daughter will have a little piece of me. But folks, I appreciate the way they play the game. But I'm really worried about the education that they share. That Tomahawk Chop song, that Chief Wahoo song, you know. Whoa! Oh my Lord. Garbage. Garbage song, guys. It desecrates our music. It desecrates the foundation of our music because we don't have songs that have that structure. You music teacher, our songs have structure. They've got a lead, a backup, first verse, a pause, and a second verse. And that song is just one of those monikers, folks. It doesn't make me feel good. Especially when I saw them again in the Super Bowl last year. Then they panned over to a bar in Germany and they're all doing that and chugging beer, right? Okay? And I said this to your students, just like I said to you all in January. Imagine if they were called, right, the Kansas City Catholics. And their mascots was a priest and a nun. And for play, just because, hey, we're just playing around here, when the players come out of the tunnel, instead of spraying holy water, they're spraying beer all over the players. Oh, how long do you think that would last, my friend? You know, holy man, there'd be anarchy, right? Why? Because it's wrong. We shouldn't do that. That is wrong. to the Native people. Then we bring out the big war bonnets. Chief Wahoo and his big war bonnet. Ojibwe people, we didn't wear war bonnets like that. But yet that's how our people are represented. That's what we're told, everybody, that that's what they are. Those war bonnets, by the way, only got brought out on special occasions. You wouldn't just prancy them out. No, very special, sacred items. Yet they're paraded around in red feathers and, all over beer, chanting, millions of people, right, So that's my worry, folks, is the education that's happening. So in the state of Minnesota, it's now illegal to have a school name after Native American people, tribe, whatever, right? That it's illegal now. But if you want to, you can petition. So what did War Road Warriors do? They petitioned. I read their letter. You see, the person that had that land where the school system was built on, he gifted his land to the school system. He said, I'm honored to be able to share this land, to have you teach future warriors. And if you would please use that name to call your place. We all want to build warriors, not fighters, but people with good minds, good hearts, good problem solvers. That was in their letter of petition, basically, in a nutshell. So you see, what they did with that letter is they just didn't send it to the state. It actually goes to all 11 tribal councils, and they have to unanimously approve that moniker and that name. And I'm proud to say today, they are known as the War Road Warriors today. I got them shaking in their pants, right? Man, we've had this for years, how could they do this? Come on now. Go through the process. But also the re-recognition, because if you go around Warrior, they have those statements all over the place, folks, about how they're honored, the recognition of that name, and the education that they give. It is a normal thing for them to share the story that I just shared with you. Also, infusing Native content into the program, because down in War Road, there's a lot of brown Native people there, mostly Ojibwe. So, yeah, they probably should. So that's why this is now in the law, folks. I'm gonna actually move away. How do I? I'm gonna stop sharing, and then I'm gonna. How do I? Oh, I did it, didn't I? I'm gonna get you to put up because I couldn't share the tab. Scrolling down, I didn't even look at the screen. You guys couldn't see it, right? But section 5. Another thing in here, folks, is infusing Ojibwe and Dakota content into the program. That it is required. And for those of you that might think it's just for English social studies teachers, it's for all educators. That there is a component in here for your relicensure, okay? That you need to have some kind of endorsement. And they haven't figured that out yet. But I was actually pretty proud to share that, and this is kind of crazy because nobody told me, but folks, and I'm not sure if it was Krista, but I know your colleague, Zanati, who's kind of in your position with Moorhead area schools, they sent a notice to the state saying, well, what do we do with this? Where do we get the training? And they said, well, at this time, we do not have any training, but give a guy named Ricky White a call. I was happy with that, right? But at the same time, it's like, well, okay, I'll do my best. But here it is, folks. So this is the law. You see the American Indian history and content. So that's your, the professional educator licensing board are involved. Funding, American Indian student. And look at here, as you move down this thing, required of a coordinator. It's also required by law that if you have 10 or more Native students in your school, you're required to have a parent committee. That's always been required by law. Look at graduation ceremonies, tribal regalia, and objects of cultural significance. So, beaded caps, feathers, bring it on. Look at section 22 there, Jeff. Look at section 22. Hey, health teacher, look at what that says. Tobacco products prohibited in public schools. Get that tobacco out of here. However, it allows an American Indian student to carry a medicine pouch containing loose tobacco, intended as observance of traditional spiritual or cultural practices. So a kindergartner could come to school with tobacco, folks. Hey? Yeah, kindergartner could come to school. My daughter, when she was 5 and in kindergarten, I sent her to school with tobacco before this law. But I made sure I told her, you do not go and flaunt this around. Don't desecrate our teaching saying, oh, look what I got, you know, oh, geez, let's go to the bathroom and have a little smoke. You do that, I will be in the office with you. Your middle school principal here, I'll join, and I will tell you right in front of your parents that you screwed up. You know that's not what you're supposed to do, right? So just because the right is there, it shouldn't be used as a disruption, you know? So any disruption to the program, we can't have that, right? That includes our smudging, any of our medicines, any of our cultural teachings. It doesn't need to be used that way. So I'll be there with you if you need us support. To call, I'm not going to call the student out, but I will say, hey, no, okay, you screwed up, okay? Maybe you got to go on a little journey with that teaching a little more, huh? You know, that's how just throw it around. So this is now the law, folks. This is where it's at. This is what's required of all of you in here. Now, move to another slide. All right, I don't know how, or what. Oh, share this tab instead. Oh, my man. Okay, I got you now. Share this tab instead. So, folks, I asked you all, how many of you were educators in here, and the whole room pretty much lifted their hands. And looking at the slide deck, are you ready to implement Native content into your work right now? By law. Are you ready to do this? Okay? Because it's required of you. Can you do this right now? Okay? This is 2 years law. So I'm going to ask you to take a quick survey. Okay? Take a quick survey. It's a yes or no survey, right? That you are ready to do this. It doesn't ask for your name, okay? Just answer yes or no. Get in there and answer yes or no, and we're going to have live data here right now. Again, are you ready to implement the law? Those things that you saw there, a lot of us probably the first time we've ever seen the thing. Doesn't surprise me, you know. Most laws I'm not even aware of. But right there, so just QR code, get in there and take the survey. I'm going to pull the survey up here. Another component of today as we see the thing spinning. Okay, where is it? Ready level. Here we go. See how many folks. Geez, already 40 people. Geez, look at you guys. Okay. And all right. Get about another 30 seconds. All right, here we are, folks. There's where we are. Again, are you ready to put content into your work right now? The vast majority. There's still a good chunk of you that aren't. And that's everywhere I go. Am I surprised that 77%? No. I think you've had some exposure already. You're just going to kind of go like any of you can. Read a lesson plan. You know what that looks like. You know, right? You know, as long as you're provided with the plan and an opportunity, hey, you're going to go with it. So this is good to see that you're ready to do it. Doesn't have anything to do with, right, the lack thereof. So how can we get into starting to dig in with this a little bit, folks? Here's some things from the Department of Education. This is a scary place for educators, as it's part of your content and curriculum. This has, you know, and I just kind of put, I guess if I click on this, and I'll just kind of take a look at it. we'll just take a glance at it, but it takes you to this page that a lot of you are already familiar with, you know, your standards page. Oh, let me just make sure I scroll up here. You know, your standards page, and you know, I'll just kind of take English standards, for example, your English language arts, and I'll just kind of go into a reading strand. Oh, of course, I don't want to do all of that. I'm just going to click on the reading strand here. That's the writing anchor. I'll go into the reading strand here. Just bear with me, folks. So this is what it looks like, you know, and in the strand, under R3, which is your reading strand number 3, that's where you're going to find your for reading. As you go down to reading anchor strand number 3, come on down here. Here we go. Here's where you get into, again, it's not really the clearest. Here's where you get into more of what is required. So you see kindergarten right through to grade 12. Shows you, well, it doesn't show you what yet. That's kind of where the, you know, where the trouble kind of starts is, well, what are we going to use, Ricky? What are we going to use, State? But it tells you there, right, to choose perspectives and identities of historical and contemporary Dakota and Anishinaabe people. That's kind of the cut and paste for the reading anchor, all grades. There's a writing strand, and of course there's that kind of sharing strand as well, and that's just in the reading component. And so I just wanted to show right here, you know, this is there, and you guys already know all of this. This is your language, so they've developed at least a starting point for you to dig in with all of this. So what I wanted to do here, just have you sort of dig in there a little bit, is to, I know depending on what your background is in here, is to dig in with these and find the component of where it discusses the requirement of infusing Native and Anishinaabe content into the program. So I just wanted to just take a little pause. This will be kind of a stretching pause. We'll spend just a few minutes, you know, I'm taking like 6-7 minutes, just to have you dig in quick. I did a little bit of work for the English language arts folks, just to dig in there a little bit. On your phones, wherever have you, just you know, whatever it is that you teach. Dig in on your phones, on your laptops, and talk with your partners a little bit, and just sort of uncover some of the content that's required in there. And of course, when you say the content, it's just those standards-based talk right now. The what is still to be determined, right? So go ahead and dig in for a little bit. I'm going to light the stage. Add a little holy water. Damn, I can't get that song. That song came on the radio and Jelly Roll. And I got that song in my head now. Add a little holy water. Yeah, so just a little stretch break. Kind of dig in a little bit. A little time to share. I know, right? Yeah. Be a little bathroom break as well. And then we'll kind of come back here, okay, folks? So just your first little dig here on that slide.
I was able to pull in, different screening and work with residential school. Thanks for helping me. I think the book itself is probably for 10th grade, but I'm hoping that everything else helping it.
I'm going to put the slide deck back up here. There we go. Alrighty, folks. Let's start to make our way back. Just a little taste. How you doing?
It's all yours.
How's your steep driveway and this kind of stuff? I always think about that.
It's okay. My car has winter tires, but yeah, my old car, I would just think twice about going up the driveway. And yeah,
Maybe park on the street.
yeah, yeah. I had to stay on top of it. You didn't need to do that at all.
Oh, no.
I'm happy to come in this car.
I was already out there and I was going to about a half an hour and you just cut through, so I was happy to go.
I've done it for so long.
How are you?
Riding on the drive.
Good luck on season 2B. Now, and Glover got this
Like,
It's snow.
so excited.
I just got wanted to tell you this morning. I actually knew about this. Our garage doors. So I couldn't get out of the garage door, so we had to take it through the house to get out.
Oh, no.
The snow blower.
like mechanically it's not working, or it's frozen to this event?
No. So the chain, like I got it last time, was like laying on the garage door, so like something like broke. And so I was like, oh, I'll probably try my hand at fixing that, and then it was no, just call somebody. So I was like manually close the door.
Yeah.
Alrighty, folks. Oh, wow. Let's all make our way back.
Thank you again.
How about a little language here? Let's all say ho wah. Let's have y'all back here. Ho wah, everybody. Ho wah. Everybody, ho wah. Big guy in the back there in the black jacket. Let me read your lips. Ho wah. Ho wah. That means good, spectacular, awesome. By the way. Hey, welcome back, folks. I just want to do a quick check-in. Hopefully, again, folks, if you haven't had a chance to kind of look into it, this is your first glance, and we're not expecting you to be the masters of this yet. It's going to take time. In fact, they have not figured out the what yet. So you see these arching. Let's go in here. Oh. You see these overarching, right? As we call them, your overarching standards, that you're going to infuse Ojibwe, Dakota, relevant, authentic content. Well, those statements are easy to make. What does that look like? And that's what the state hasn't quite figured out yet. To give you what genre, what type of games can you play that are Native American in Phi Ed? What kind of artwork can you do? So that's Dakota and Anishinaabe focused. And you see kind of the arching standards. Yeah, picking up a book, that's pretty good too. But if you're like my buddy who just talked to me about Thomas King, holy man, Thomas King, right? A renowned author. Now, geez, guilted, blamed, shame, apparently not even Native. What does that have to do with anything? The guy was a tremendous author, So there's going to be a lot of that happening. That's politics, folks. And what really is going to happen is there is right now a group called the Tribal Nations Education Committee, TNEC. And they're housed right within their tribal nations, but they have a committee, and they're basically all of the directors or executive directors of education for those tribal nations. So that entity, as well as the tribal councils themselves, are going to need to get together, because as it's written, they're going to formulate and get a plan together on the what. What are you going to be recommended to teach? And not just recommended, it might go hand in hand with a lot of the content, whatever tier 1 or impact in that way. What I say right now, folks, the best thing that you can do right now is to infuse things into what you're already doing, right? For me, no matter what they end up telling you to do, still live there. Infuse some sprinkle of Native American content, and of course, be nice if it was Ojibwe or Dakota. Why those two nations? They're the only two tribal nations, folks, that actually have communities in Minnesota, right? And if you use 94 as your boundary, you know, I drive to the Twin Cities a lot, and I use 94 from Fargo. And if I look to my left, as I'm driving to Minneapolis and I look to my left, 7 Ojibwe tribal nations in the north. Okay, that's Ojibwe territory. If I look to the right, there are 4 Dakota tribal nations. Now we have a little bit of banter, okay? For thousands of years, our nations battled each other. So we have some historical context of war, primarily over land, folks. Land. Wasn't religion, right? Where we discount you for your existence. It was over land, right? Land gave everything. And when that intrusion happened, boy, did it happen on large scales. To the point to where even back home where I'm from, I live on an island. My res is on an island in the middle of Lake of the Woods on the Canadian side. We have areas called Sioux Narrows, is a town right by my nation. And in that Narrows, about 1,000 years ago, we hammered the Dakota, you know, right in that Narrows, trapped them and got them right there. There's not a place called Sioux Lookout right there. And here's the deal, the word Sioux today is actually, when we think of it today, it's actually a derogatory word. There is no word Sioux in Dakota language. If you heard a Dakota person speaking, you would never hear the word Sioux come out of their mouth. It actually isn't a word in Sioux. It's a Cree Ojibwe word that we use to describe them, and it's actually derogatory. We're calling them snakes. We're calling them backstabbing little snakes. Not really a good word, hence the Fighting Sioux, right? Lost that kind of piece. It is what it is, guys. But when we think of the what, folks, it's going to come down the pipe here. And if it's like anything, like Ricky White, I tell a lot of stories, I speak, it's probably going to be a long time. I think it's going to be at least 3, 4, maybe even 5 years out before something very specific comes onto your laps. And so I think there's going to be grace as well with relicensure with that point. Today, I'm pretty sure we actually are going to be able to check the box, but that still has not been authorized yet as well, as far as your relicensure for American Indian endorsement. I will be there with you guys though. Because if they're saying you should go and grab Ricky, why can't we check the box when you go to relicense that you've also had training in this? Because I guarantee you this training is going to be very similar to what you'll be exposed to when we do get the what, right? Your POCs will start digging in with it, right? You know, we'll get more comfortable with that stuff. But nonetheless, folks, infuse it into things that you're already doing. That's where the magic is. And I'm going to give you a little AI component here shortly too. But I'm going to kind of go in the audience here a little bit and just ask for, you know, some reflection on some of the things, you know, that have happened here at River Falls over, you know, the course of time that I've been able to be here. Hey, everybody online, how you doing? You know, I got Ryan's staff here online. I'm sure they're all just tuned in really good too. Hey, everybody giving you feedback? Of course they are. But I'm going to ask Jessica. You guys, I don't know if you know Jessica yet, but Jessica is one of your colleague educators. Tell me a story.
Sure. Well, I just shared with Ricky that after he spoke to our students, that day on the drive home, I asked my son, he's an 8th grader, I asked him about the presentation and what he thought, and he shared with me the example that Ricky used about mascots and about what if there was a mascot and it was the Catholic priest, and he said, Mom, that just made so much sense, like that, I really understood that. And so I shared that with Ricky. And then I asked my 10th grade English students to write a little reflection the next day. And a number of the students mentioned the same example and just how that, you know, that really helped them to understand why the mascots, why it is an issue, why it's a problem. So.
What do you say? Give it up for Jessica, right? You know, just, so that to me is also affecting the cultural IQ of your learners here with authentic, right? You know, it's, it's a challenge. It is a problem, right, that they're solving. And when you provide them with information and perspective, that is the magic, guys. See, that's where I'm a little worried at with this law, is that we're going to get so finely tuned that this is what you have to teach and this is how you're going to do it. If you don't do it that way, you're doing it wrong. I'm worried about that piece, folks. I want, yes, some objectivity, information, like I shared in terms of mascots, to get folks to think a little differently on it. Because if you're like the vast majority of Kansas City Chiefs fans, right, they're PO'd. They're like, hey, we've been doing this forever. We're not racist, right? But we're just following our team. You know, we're just, you know, cheering on our team. We're not doing anything to cause any harm. But like I said, folks, as a Native person, it still feels icky. It feels like when I was younger, walking down and being called, and pardon me, you know, being called a bush nigger. Yeah, said the N-word here today. You see what I mean, folks? It felt the same to me when represented in such a way. We call it unintentional racism, you know? Unintentional bias in the sense that you've all been brought up in a good way. I don't believe anybody in this room has that hatred about it, right? But there's just some things that we don't know as a result of our lived experience. That it feels like that to me. Every time I hear the song, it feels, because I'm a guy of the drum as well. I was brought up on the drum, folks. Whitefish Bay Singers, since I was a kid. Taught the beautiful ways of our drum, respecting that drum. Built right away kind of your familial connection, your kind of do's and don'ts, the grandfather teachings, all of those functional behavior mechanisms. I learned all of those on the drum. But then all of a sudden I see it on TV and every Sunday, and it's just pounded. And I see just a drunkard of stuff happening. And, you know, it doesn't feel good. And I'm proud of the Kansas City Chiefs. They banned now any face painting from being brought into their arena. See, face paint as well, folks. We think, oh, we're just going tribal. We're going to kill that team. You know, we're gonna scalp them. You know, I was having a conversation with one of your colleagues here who grew up in Roseau, and she remembered a lot of the stuff happening with the Road Warriors. And I remember a time watching a hockey game and hearing, I don't think they were playing Roseau, but it was just one of their rival teams, and I could hear even in the fans, scalp as Indians, you know? Like, is it racist? Maybe. Are they intentionally, like, live that way? I don't know, but I tell you what, hearing it, ooh, did it feel pretty rough, you know? So folks, we gotta be very mindful, and mindful to the context that we also need to equip you with tools so that you remember. Think of Jessica's eighth grade boy now, talking to her in the car, her 10th grade English class. I would say that every one of your students probably heard it very similarly. And I was so honored to talk to your kindergartners, your elementary schools. You know, that was amazing that day. Of course, in this auditorium, having the entirety of the group, and I can't remember if it was an hour or what, but hey, Ricky style, storytelling style, right? They got all of these things, right? And I know not all of them are going to agree, but here's the deal, folks. Objectivity is our home base. Meaning this, let's just share facts. Let's share kind of information with you. Okay? Because when we lay with information, then we can we allow you to dig in with it. That's the subjectivity of it all, folks. That's a good, healthy education. Just like what I just did now. If I just simply went one way, and then if I just simply said, this is how you're going to think about this, right? You know? It'd be like me saying, because if we're thinking cultural competency, what's good for Native people is good for all. If I just simply said, I hate all gay people, and I need you to think that way too. Did I just do an injustice to you as good people and learners? Just like I would to any of our sacred young people, you know? Folks, we need to provide good information. Good, clear, sound, authentic information. That's what this is about as well. Because if all we did was listen to the TV, oh boy, are we in a tough place. We all have kind of some politicized backgrounds. I hope you all vote, you know, right? That exercising those rights. It's a beautiful place we live in here, America, to have those things. And yet we also know and see and feel almost every day the division of what's happening in our world. The problem-solving mentality that we have today. That if that's simply what I would do and yell and scream, that I hate this, faction of people, and that's all I did, you know, folks, many, we might say, geez, you know, you're just speaking, that's your First Amendment right, here, there. But why don't we just get back to being nice to each other? Where is that humanity, right? Because if we go in reverse and just simply say, okay, there is some folks that think a little differently than me, that will feel a little differently than me. Maybe I'll dig in a little bit and find out a little why on that. And at least at that point, maybe appreciate it. But I still should be content to move on with what I'm thinking and feeling on it. But just maybe be very mindful and careful on how I'm going to share that out there. You all have a dire and deep responsibility with your learners. Your learners, right, will listen to what you say and teach them and tell them. It's a big responsibility. If all we do is tell them and share with them one perspective, or this is the only way to think, folks, you know, it maybe is okay, right? You know, it might work for a lot of things, but we also got to remember there's a whole pile of folks that might not be thinking that way, you know? And so it's important to provide information. Sprinkle some of the stuff in with what you're already doing, right? Share some of those factoids, that information, and then let the students dig in, right? That's the subjective piece. That's the beautiful piece. Let your students start talking about it, right? But at the same time, folks, we do want to remember our bottom line piece, and it is a very clear line, that we ultimately still need to be good humans to each other. When I talk about cultural competency when it comes to LGBTQ, racial things, color, race, you know, it ultimately just needs to get back. We can talk about all the systemic things, all of that information, definitions, all of those things, but we need to saturate it, folks, with ultimately just being good to each other, you know? The political correctness is a tough place, and that's the part that's going to be challenging with native content infusion, is we're going to be afraid to make a mistake, and if we think, if we put that out there and all of a sudden maybe we have made a mistake, all of a sudden the guilting, blaming, and shaming, now we're not going to do it, you know? We're going to be constantly mindful. I was in a training with a guy named Ricky White, and he talked and he shared this stuff with us, that this would probably happen. I just want you to know that we're doing our best. This is how we were taught and we were told to say it. We respect these teachings in a way, you know. The best that you can do, folks. But if we just resort back to that good, that's the best we can do. We cannot just simply think that we're going to reverse the mind and have somebody just think ultimately the good that is happening in your head. Might not ever happen. But just do your best. Go back to the good of what you are, right? That's a foundational piece. And that's a good place to live. So all of these things are coming here, folks, okay? And I needed to share that stuff with you. Just, I don't feel like I'd be doing any of this justice if I didn't share what I just did with you. Here we go. As we move in, again, elevator speeches. Elevator speeches. Here's another guy. And this one here, folks, I don't have a QR code for this one. Here's another opportunity on the how, okay? This is on the North Dakota side, and this is exactly where Minnesota's gonna go. They actually currently have in Minnesota, and I'm gonna show it to you here, right now. I'll show you the Minnesota. I'm gonna show you the Minnesota essential understandings. So I have them linked up here. Oops. The Minnesota Essential Understandings, there actually is a document that is shared with the Minnesota Essential Understandings, meaning this is what we want you to teach, okay? So they've actually done this, and they have 7 essential understandings. So this document is alive and done very well, these 7 essential understandings. So this document is a very good guide. It goes in and it teaches and wants and shares with you some of the things, the bare minimum that we would like for you to share. So this is one that is going to be adopted, no question in my mind, by all the tribes and the Tribal Nations Education Committee. They've already kind of, let's just say, endorsed this, but it still doesn't go into very much depth. But there's a lot of good stuff here. If anything, what I think this document is really good for is it gives you all, the educators, some just good background information. You know, here's that boundary line again, right? You know, those 7 tribes in the north, 4 tribes below. It gives you some good naming stuff. Things, information about any of the place names that are around. Of course, it talks about kind of some of the history of the Ojibwe and Dakota. A lot of our teachings, our food and diet, medicines, just good background information in this document. And I want to say it's a gentle one too. It isn't, you know, 100 pages or anything, but it does give some really good context into understanding the law a little bit, but also getting and digging in with kind of your Native America here in Minnesota and all these, you know, the 11 tribal nations that are here. And so this document, this resource guide is alive right now. It still doesn't go into detail though and tell you, here's what we would like you to teach. Here's some content, here's some books. It's not quite there yet. But it will be. It's getting there. Because I want to say that Minnesota is going to move to what is being done and what is already alive in North Dakota. And that is this guy right here. I'm going to project it a little bigger. So this one here, this is called the North Dakota Native American Essential Understandings. Where Minnesota's going to go is they're going to have a home-based website, a warehouse, where you'll be able to access content, okay? And I often say what's good for North Dakota is good for everywhere. So they have this home-based website. This is just a screenshot, but their actual website, and I didn't create a QR code for this, but their actual website, I'm going to share this tab, is Teachings of Our Elders.org. So teachingsofourElders.org, and it'll get you to this warehouse and this website here. And here's where we're going to go with this today. We're going to have a little kind of dig in with this as well as we look at 9:35 is the time. We're going to do a dig in with this. And here's this website, folks. And what's beautiful about this website is it's already loaded with hundreds of lesson plans, general lesson plans. Not necessarily focused on the 5 tribal nations of North Dakota, there is, but there's just that sense of generalized native content, like the medicine wheel, which all tribal nations use, tobacco offerings, smudging. These are general Native American teachings. This website has hundreds of lessons. How do I know? I've written about 40 of them, so there's a lot of good stuff in here. Any of you, I would recommend you grab onto what makes a good human. That's a lesson in here, really, I'll tell you. Grab that one. But what I like about this lesson is it has, just like Walmart, just like anything, it's got its own internal search mechanism. So here's that good human. Type in, I'm just going to type in good human. Let's see where it takes you. And all of them, what makes a good human being, eh? Now, Scott Simpson and Charlotte Steven, they're the web designers. So they didn't write any of the lessons, but what I appreciate about the way that they put this together, and it's going to come to Minnesota as well, is they use a framework of lesson planning called the Inquiry Design Model, IDM, Lesson Plan Format, which basically, I know it's a big term, but all it is it's going to provide you with facts and questions, and I want you to dig in with it. That's your inquiry. So we're going to provide you with facts, some statements, some questions. Every lesson has it. And then they want you and the learners to dig in with it, meaning you don't have to be the expert. Dig in and learn with your learners. So check this out. What makes a good human? We're just going to dig in with this lesson. This is one of the pre-planned lessons. So again, it has some questions. What experience have I had on my own or with my family or community that have helped me to shape my values, right, and my ways? Then it has, every lesson has this type of way of organizing itself. Usually 3 supporting questions. And this is where you dig in. Formative task, what you're going to do with the kids. So how do Indigenous communities, so supporting question number 1, and it's all linear, so it's kind of right, embedded beneath each one. How do Indigenous communities develop and share their teachings and values? And here's a beautiful thing. Embedded within this warehouse are hundreds of elder interviews. So this, again, you think of where Minnesota's going, they're going back to the tribal nations and the tribal nations Education Committee to provide the information. They're going to be doing this as well, guarantee you. They'll be interviewing hundreds of elders, they'll import them into this home bank and warehouse, and that'll be kind of the foundation of supportive content for all of you to plug and play, right? You know, I don't need to be the expert here, folks. We want you to learn with your learners, support you with your learners. So what do? All you do is you get in here, so teacher background stuff, lots of teacher background stuff in here, and then it says, here you go, embedded within here. I'm going to share this tab. Here's Alex Dakota, right? Sharing the 7 grandfather teachings. This guy, by the way, a lot of people wonder, why Indian Ed for all? I get that everywhere I go, Jeff. People ask me, why Indian education for all? What's so special about Native people? Why that? Why Indigenous Peoples Day? Why Native American Heritage Month in November? Like, come on now, hey, what's so special? I don't have a white month. I don't have a black, well, there is some Black History Month, isn't there, you know? But why? Why all of these things all of a sudden? Folks, once again, massive disruption and interruption, if we think about it in that context. You're going to feel that side of the story here in the second half. But this guy right here, Alex Dakota, he is the only person alive in North Dakota that I am aware of that I said in the language that I could speak to in the language. The only one left. And I've gone to Turtle Mountain, where he's from, and said the same thing at their schools, and nobody has refuted it. I've actually asked, is there anybody else? Nope. The only one left, and he's almost 70. What happens when he's gone? They'll be down to 0 speakers in Turtle Mountain. And that's part of the journey here, folks. Do not believe for a second that your Native students will understand the tobacco offering. Don't think that they will all know that, or their families. They probably, I'm going to be a guessing guy, they may kind of have a little bit, but probably not the entirety of the way that I even shared it with you. Yeah, smudging? Probably not. Most of this stuff? Probably not. I'm going to say 8 out of 10. The same 8 out of 10 for the unemployment rate on our reservations. 80% unemployment rate on our reservations. What the heck is wrong with you Indians? That's what my buddies say to me. What the heck is wrong with you guys, Ricky? You know? Heck, McDonald's pays $17 an hour. Why can't you guys just go get a job? What is wrong with you guys? What's with, drugs and alcohol? Like this, come on now, hey? It's willpower, right? What is wrong with you guys? Right? If you want to learn a language, why don't you just learn it? What is wrong with you guys? We're going to unpack that a little bit too, folks. But what you're going to find is that there has been massive interruption and disruption to why that is. Why even I didn't hear it. I heard it even on my res, but I also heard it in the context that we don't want to share this stuff with you because we don't want what happened to us to happen to you. And that is the vast majority of those 8 out of 10 kids that don't speak, that don't know nothing about this stuff. if you looked at their lineage, there was likely some disruption in there that happened, and likely a little storyline to what I'll share with you shortly. But in this content, folks, getting back to this, lots of it in here. Lots of it in here. So let's go back here. I'm going to share this page. All right. Back to this home base. Anytime you want to get to the home page, just click on the little icon and it'll get you right back. What they have done now with this, and here's how you're going to use it today, is Scott Simpson, brilliant guy, tech guy, that works with this. Non-native guy, white guy, looks like Gandalf, you know, big, long beard, tall guy too, you know. But he, working with these tribal nations, and he developed an AI component, a little chat GPT for the Native American essential understandings. Things that you could use today in your classrooms, and it's right here. So again, I don't want to get click happy here, but it's in this heading here. The Indian AEU, North Dakota Native American Essential Understandings, calling it the Indian AEU. And it's under lesson plan building. And so it gives you some directions, but really in this here, folks, understanding. I just click on this guy and it opens your chat GPT, customized for native content. And you could pretty much type in anything in here and just listen to the prompts. It will ask you, right? Where are you? What school district are you in? What state are you in? And then it just completely saturates itself with native content based on what was founded in the essential understandings. If you know AI, it's taken every elder interview that it knows, and it processes way faster than our human minds. But it takes everything and it pumps out a recommendation for you on what you could teach, what you could share. Share this with the kids, right? And so folks, yes, AI is scary. We need to use it, right? Responsibly, appropriately, and I'm not sure what your district is and where they're at with this yet. But I tell you what, for information, I like this one. When I say I like this one, I appreciate this one because the manner in which it was developed really puts into, you can see the title, North Dakota Native American Essential Understandings Chat GPT. And here's the page, here's what it looks like. Here's your AI assistant, now customized for Chat GPT. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new lesson, let it start talking to me. Oh, great, let's build something new together. To get started, I just need a little direction. What grade level? Since Jessica, you were a 10th grade teacher, I'm going to say I am a 10th grade teacher. 10th grade? What topic would you like to focus on? 10th grade, what do you think? What would you like to focus on? Here we go. The what do we teach? How about something that you're already doing? What would it be?
How about science?
Diet? Science. Oh, okay. So they want to go science. 10th grade science. And what are we going to study? Well, let's just start there. 10th grade science. Perfect. 10th grade. To design, I need one more thing. What topic of science do you want to create? Right? Look at all this. I'm going to go Earth systems. So I'm going to copy and paste Earth systems. Okay? Copy and paste that in, since that's a 10th grade science topic. Excellent choice. Oh, here we go. I'm going to build your lesson. Oh, here's all this stuff in the Missouri. And then I'm going to say right here, how about content for Fergus Falls Public School? I type way faster than this, by the way. Actually, one of the greatest things my mom could have done for me was make sure I learned how to type. So I can type like, I don't know if I'm at 100, but I'm pretty darn fast at using these hooks. So here we go. I can help with that, okay? But I need to understand what you mean. So 10th, 11th grade ecosystems aligned, right? Yeah, they're going to do the North Dakota standard. Just tell me A, B, or C. I'm going to say A. Okay? And then it is going to guide you a little more. So again, it's constantly referencing back to its internal norms. Its internal norms of what you're going to teach in regards to this topic and this content. You can see Minnesota academic standards in science. So inquiry design model, it's going to have you ask questions and learn with the kids, right? You know, here's background information and whatnot. And then let's go another layer, since you're all required via your licensure. How about Anishinaabe or Dakota content in this area? Absolutely. Here is accurate, region-specific Dakota connected to your Fergus Falls Otter Tail area. Again, folks, this is the what. Are you going to do everything in here? Probably not. But this is indeed a guide for you to start beginning to share the what and what you're going to be talking about. You see White Earth Nation, straight north. North, they are Ojibwe. The Sisseton, Wahpeton, Dakota. Dakota are in the south. Those two tribal nations have a storied history, folks. A lot of wars, a lot of battle, a lot of, we'd say, folks that are both Dakota, Ojibwe, and White Earth, both Dakota, Ojibwe, and Sisseton. A lot of blended family happening there too. But here's, again, just using this internal mechanism. Now, I want to believe that your regular chat GPT would do this for you. And I've done a little bit of it, and it does a pretty good job. But this one built internally with this system. He's used the algorithm, let's just say, to make sure that things are harnessed so that the things that you're getting will have that relevance towards the native content that has been developed, and then just throw in, because we're here in Minnesota and it's required here in Minnesota that you also have a focus on Anishinaabe and Dakota content, that you throw in those key words as you've dug in a little bit. It's going to give you some focused content on whatever it is you originally searched for. And again, it was very generic. You know, if I'm a FIED teacher, what are some FIED activities or games that I can use in my classroom here in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, right? Specifically, Ojibwe or Dakota. It's going to give you some recommendations, folks, okay? And again, what I would start with is sprinkling in just a little wee bit of it, folks. We are in no hurry here. So if all we're going to do is make mention of it a little bit, relate some of this stuff to what you're already doing, that to me is the perfect beginning. Let's start there. Just like all of us, we need to learn how to crawl before we learn how to walk. We need to learn how to walk before we can run. Then the other thing we got to remember, folks, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. This is something that I don't see going away. And I want to invite you to come on the journey and become champions. Just like most places that I'm seeing today. When I say I'm seeing, the ones that I naturally have connected with. The openness of you educators to do this. Number one, you're all ethical people, and I get that. You're gonna, right? This is also, if we just look down to it, right? Your licensure. Geez, I hate, you know, it is what it is, but that's where it's at right now. And as we look at other things, your principles, right? You know, how we bring this alive. I want to help you with that journey on how we market this, on how ultimately this will answer that question. We all had some trouble getting to school today. And I'm going to say it this way, just knowing our native population, likely the worst attendance rates that you have in the district, likely the poorest performers on benchmarks in reading and math at 3rd, 8th grade, likely the worst graduation rate out of any other culture here. I'm gonna just say it that way. Because everywhere I go, it's about the same, okay? That's what you have. And if they're anything like me, when I was in school, I got very little of who I was. I felt like a ghost, like an alien. I felt like, as an adult, walking into that Duluth high school, I felt afraid to walk into that place. I felt no good. Talk about self-esteem, that's just waking up. And that's, again, I'm gonna say it this way, 8 out of 10 of your Native American learners, that's where they are. Just struggling just to get here. And then they walk in late to your classrooms and maybe confronted with, what's wrong with you? You should have been here 3 minutes ago. Folks, I'm telling you, let's maybe think a little differently on some of this stuff. I'm not saying, oh, and this is the hardest part, you know, coddle them, feel sorry for them, you know? That's not what I'm saying. Because trauma-informed care will tell you, if you've been trained in trauma-informed care, the biggest mistake that you can make is furthering the gap by saying to a student that has trauma, don't worry about school right now, we're gonna get this. We're unintentionally furthering the gap and disconnect from school, folks. I know we all have a compassion and a big heart. Somebody just had their parents arrested the night before and they're here and they're just completely out of sorts. You know, welcome to Native country, right? The recidivism of drug addictions and things that happen and parents, you know, getting arrested, that's a common thing in place. And they're walking to your doorsteps, right? And that's happening. But folks, when we say to them, you know, don't worry about your school right now, we're gonna handle this piece, we're actually unintentionally furthering the gap. Instead, what we gotta say, folks, is this: we know and we understand what's happening in your home. We're gonna work with you on that. And we need you to be in class still. And this is a safe place, this is a good place. We need to keep that in connection too. We're gonna get that other stuff figured. And I know it's not just that easy, but when we have that as our starting place, folks, continually referencing the connection to school, class, you people that deliver the content, I can't teach math. I suck at math, actually, you know? And I can't help my own daughter with math right now, you know? So folks, yes, they need to be in your care. You're the ones, you are the ones that are gonna make it. The more that we can get them there, and then still help with this other piece, that's the best we can do, and we do it very well in schools. This stuff will also help. It might not be overwhelming, right? Because you also will get, you're gonna get some negative feedback from even your Native students and families who are saying, why are we learning this? They're gonna challenge you on that. They too will say, this is garbage. You know, why are we learning this? Didn't do me any good, or they're just gonna question you on it. It's gonna happen, folks. What we gotta remember is, once again, the storyline of where that person that is saying that, what's happened to them. And I'll guarantee you, there was massive disruption and interruption to something for them to be able to say that. That's pure assimilation in action right there, without even knowing. And the vast majority of kids likely won't know who they are, or be able to name their tribal nation or identity. That's just where it's at right now today. So if we need reasons why Indian education for all, that's just a little piece of it. We're gonna get more here in a moment. But what I'd like for all of you to do, on your phones, on your devices, is I'd like you to go back, teachingsofourElders.org, right there on your phone, if you can get it. And you know what, maybe I'll create a QR code. You guys wanna see QR code making 101? Check this out. I'm gonna share the screen. I'm gonna go back up here to teachingsofourElders.org. Here's the website. I'm gonna highlight the website. I'm gonna do my Command C, which is a copy. I'm gonna copy that. And then I have it highlighted here, but Adobe Express offers a free service. I'm not paid by Adobe, by the way. But I'm gonna create and generate a QR code. And guess what I'm gonna do here in the URL? I'm gonna cut and paste that URL, teachingsofourElders.org. I'm gonna download, and I'm gonna call this I see it's gonna be saved to my desktop. So there it is. Then I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna insert another slide. And then in here, I'm gonna insert an image right from the computer, right on the desktop. There's the QR code. So any of you need to find the website, teachingsofourElders.org, there it is. Oh, you want the original slide deck? Okay, I'll do that. So I'm going to insert some text here. Scan here to get to website teachingsofourElders.org. And then I like, I'm just kind of, dictionary. I'm just kind of, I'm not saying I'm a geek like that, but I'm going to hyperlink that too for you, you know, so you just have to click that and it'll get you to the website as well. Oh boy, so here's to get to the website, and then I'm going to go back to that request here to share this tab. There's the, that's to get to this slide deck again if you need it. Was I sharing the QR code to get to the website? I wasn't sharing that, was I? So here's to get to the slide deck for you again. Okay, I'm going to do it that way. All right, see more phones? Yeah, you're zooming in on it. Open up your camera. That's what I should have said, by the way. So folks that haven't done this before, I know the kids will get all over you, right? Especially when you speak their language, huh? You know, I found out earlier, and geez, you got to be careful with their language. You know, it's their language, right? Riz. I thought Riz is all about charisma. You know, I'm really charismatic. You know, that's what I am. Then I found out it was actually like you're flirting with somebody, right? You know, and I'm like, whoa. And then I found out recently, and this is the one, my friend, you got to be careful, you know. And I found out about sync. And whoo, boy, did I get bamboozled on that one. Sync is actually a thing between females when they sync up over their time of the month. And here I'm thinking, we're in sync together, right? You know, we're locked in, and they're like looking at me like this, and I'm, what did I just say and do? Oh my gosh, no wonder they're looking at me funny. So be careful with this new language, guys, okay? I'm just telling you, like anybody here, I make mistakes on it all the time too. So there's the QR code, and I'm gonna get back to the website. And what I'd like for you to do is dig in, go to, if you would, in this website, I want you to focus in on lesson plan building. So this area of the website, and build yourself a lesson plan. Whatever content it is, if you're a principal, maybe it's, you know, how can I use Ojibwe and Dakota teachings to teach behavior, you know, to redirect behavior. Restorative practice, like these are all Native American concepts, by the way. Restorative practice is a Native American way of life, just like democracy was founded on Native American values and principles, right? You know, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, smart guys, but they did their study. They went and studied the Iroquois people and their governmental system, and there was birthed democracy. So whatever it is in your way, just something very quick, flashy, get in and dig in with this website, build yourself a lesson using this content, and remember some of the key words, Fergus Falls Public Schools, right? Add a little more information to it. Now I'd like to use Anishinaabe and Dakota teachings in it, okay? Give me a thumbs up if you understand what I'm asking you to do. I just want to see thumbs up here. Everybody got it? Thumbs up if you know what I'm asking you to do. All right. Now, give me thumbs up if you need a little help. I know, right? Big auditorium. I know, I'd be the one too. So everybody's clear, okay. I'm gonna walk around a little bit. I'm gonna give you some time. It's 10 o'clock, folks, so we're down to our last hour. I understand this morning here, with everything happening, maybe a little dry to start with here. Lot of talk from Ricky, but I'd like for you to dig in with this. Give it your honest, good shot, and I'm talking 15 minutes here, folks. So at 10:15, we're going to gather back. So if you need another opportunity for a washroom break, we call them washrooms in Canada. We don't call them restrooms. So where's the washroom? You know, that's what we call them. Take a little break, but coming back here in, let's say 13 minutes, okay? Dig in a little bit, share with your partners too. So once you've shared in there, I'd like for you to share with your elbow partner once you're ready. Do all of that, and we'll see you back here. So I'm gonna just kind of walk around a little bit. All right, folks. Miigwech, thank you. Dig in a little.
You guys haven't seen a sign in clipboard?
Huh?
You haven't seen a sign in clipboard, have you?
A couple passed by after the last break.
Okay.
I know there's more than one.
Ryan might have. Maybe have.
Oh yeah, there's one next to him.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I made a little lesson, so I'll go up to my 15 minutes. Dates? Yeah. Yeah.
There's some new ones.
It has like the amount of music. So,
And I've really been liking Thea. Occasionally she'll stay after class and just like gab with me a little bit. She's so fun.
she enjoys your class a lot. Her paper was crazy.
I'm excited to touch
What's
that?
You get to keep them.
You get to keep,
It's
oh,
supposed to end like, where did that come from?
pass on to my,
Yeah. I thought it was,
Good rest.
I don't know.
You don't
I
know.
was,
You don't know how.
it was good. I just like, it was like, I don't know. And I don't want to say anything because then I would like swing his grading, but like, I was so tired when I was reading it that I couldn't tell if like the argument was working or not. You know what I mean? Or if I, yeah, or not.
The trick is that it didn't actually need to be an argumentative paper, so I think
He doesn't
you
know how to
kinda-
do
yeah.
much else because that's the mode of operation at home. Like, persuasion, debate, that kind of stuff all the time.
we talked about the little, any research paper is going to have some level of persuasiveness. I'm trying to make kids feel like they can just give me the overview of the issue because I'm concerned about having to weigh in on like any particular like side of it.
Well, have you ever seen the book Everything's an Argument? When I was at NDSCS, one of my coworkers taught her freshman writing class that way, that everything is an argument. The way you choose to dress is an argument. The way you know what I mean? Like, what you choose to eat is an argument. A poster is an argument. A photo is an argument. So basically, they had to try to find the message. Yeah, so that's kind of, I think that's kind of how sees whatever it is.
I have her, and I don't know how many the kids in her grade unit. She and Alana big, really interesting.
I don't know her. The one thing that we were disagreeing on is I had told her to ask you what you wanted her to do when the URLs got too long, and she told you. She said you told her she could just take them out. I said I don't think he means take them out. I think he means take out the live links. I don't think he could, because she had pulled out then all the URLs.
Well, and I also didn't understand the question at first because I thought she was asking if she should have them in line and not just at the bottom.
So she had two questions that she was supposed to ask you. Technically, when you say,
5
according to
minutes,
Anna
folks,
Millar
5
and
minutes.
Wendy Christensen and Newsweek, quote, then you don't need a parenthetical citation.
Right. Yep.
But she thought you were, so she put them in, as both in-text citations and the parenthetical, because that's what she thought you needed. And I said, I don't think that's
I
right.
wanted them to have both if you use one thing in the intro, so if you just use the name, then put the source in the parentheses. But yeah, if you did both of you included Jennifer's writing for the New York Times, then
So she has parentheses on everything.
that's fine. And kids were so worried about like if you're getting the habit of erring on the side of having parentheses like at 9th grade, not, and I'm like that's not a problem.
And then I can't find any more. She was like trying to do her title page, and I couldn't find any more of the spacing because it's not standard to use a title page much anymore. So I couldn't find the
And that I
current.
probably will take that out of the picture once that was a vestige of what I knew as a job.
Yeah. No, I just saying it was, so it's spaced to look kind of good, but if
So
you
I just
count
like
the
if it
number
looks
of
like
times
this,
she hit
yeah,
enter,
it
it's
looks
going
like the
up.
example from the description I got from Charter. But yeah, the guidelines for having a link at the end of an entry on a works cited page. If I'm looking at it digitally and it makes a live link without even a try, I don't see any.
But it wasn't bad. It was like, you know how like then you have like one word because they try to keep it as a
Right,
whole.
yeah, then it's
Then you have that big
spacing.
that big white space on there. That's what we didn't know. So
What's your take on that? I mean, you must get everything.
I take whatever is in there. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't mark anything wrong about it. But I have my students totally using the tool citations of
That's what I taught them.
yeah, everything. So and Thea had already done all her citations by pulling it from the database, and she had them all.
Well, that
so
one I showed her they have to copy paste. It'll give it to
I
you.
make them. I just teach my kids now how to. Because I've moved to moving everything there. They have to enter even those. They type it
use
into
the manual.
Yep. So that when they get to their site, they just click the site tool, and they don't have to. And then whatever that shows.
But and then that's the other thing is the site button just does parentheses, right? So you'd still have to kind of know when they hit that button.
Yeah. So here, right. Yeah. But at least they're putting something in parentheses. Otherwise, my students, no matter how many times online you say over and over again, it's whatever is the first thing on the works site entry. They'll be like, Britannica. And then parentheses, it'll say, my database source, because I emphasize you need these kind of sources. So I taught them this year, I said, I moved total, everything gets entered in there and you click.
One
That's
thing
why.
that still gets me,
It's
and
better than
I
what they
feel
were
like I may be giving wrong information, is when to, like if you're going to cite a source multiple times, essentially in a row without having interrupted with something what is covered by, like, do you have to talk about it in line and say, the following information?
Yeah, my students in middle school, I'm happy if they put one citation at the end of a paragraph. In high school, I don't get into that even with my high schoolers. I should, but I don't get into whether, there are so many things, like, you shouldn't have the same parenthetical citation 4 sentences in a row. I'm not going there with that.
No, I know.
Mine don't put enough.
Oversight.
That's what I was thinking about the rhythm. Is like I would prefer oversighting, and then like if you have time to do revision, do we need this one source that's cited for 10
Well,
right? It's covered by.
because Fia was writing it like a persuasive speech. She has everything in the leading, and she would never technically have needed a single parenthesis. And so I said, we're going to put them, you should put them
She
like
must
you
have
want
last time
to
because
go.
we talked about it individually, but as a class, I was getting that question.
Yes, indeed.
If you're in doubt,
We're gonna have the big finale here, folks. I do have a little, what do they call this? An exit ticket, as we did the work here. I just would like you to scan this QR code. It's just a brief little ask, share what you did. And it's basically asking you, what topic did you select? What was your experience like? What were some of the challenges? But just a quick check-in, it's another form, so if you'd complete that. And you know what I'm gonna do with this? I'm gonna share this with Jeff, your superintendent. And it's just gonna be a quick check-in and feedback. Now, we don't want your thesis on this. Just very quick, I know we want, what do we call it? If we're doing our writing style, right? Your topic sentence and all of that, we could skip through some of that. Just something very quick, summarizing what you did as you dug in with your GPT. Is it working? Oh, let me see. I must have copied the wrong link in there. Oh yeah, it is. How about that? Hold on here. Copy. Oh yeah, I did do it. Yeah, okay. I should have seen what I was copying into the thing. Sorry, folks. My bad. Let's get back and, man, you're all so kind. All right, there we go. Much better. There you go, folks. So just take a moment and again, scan the QR code and it'll get you into the form. The form just simply asks, share what you built, in your native GPT. What lesson plan did you build? Just a topic. Share maybe what was it easy? What were the challenges? And then the second question, what would you recommend Fergus Falls Public Schools to do in the future with this ongoing work? Okay? So just a quick check-in there. Share what you built. I'm already seeing responses like crazy in there. We're good? You guys are getting in, digging in, okay. So, share what you did. Just gonna take a couple of minutes for you as we're now at 10:15. Folks, this is just the beginning. And we still need to unpack a little bit about that 80% that I keep referring to. Why is it on our reservations that 80% of those members and humans on the res are unemployed? Why is it that drugs and alcohol is an epidemic, ongoing there? Why is murder-suicide the #1 killer for any human aged 10 to 35? Why? What is the deal with you people? Is what my friends would say to me. What is going on? This is America. Opportunity. Why is it that you people still have all of these statistics that represent you and your students that come to school? And again, I'm guessing, I haven't looked at your school data. I'm looking to Jeff and your administrative team, and all of you, I haven't looked at your school data to just simply say that probably 20 to 30% proficiency rate for Native Americans in reading and math at 3rd grade might even be less if you're like most places. But this is definitely national data, and this is definitely state of Minnesota data that I'm sharing with you. That 50% of Native students graduate, right? This is the data within this state of Minnesota. So it wouldn't surprise me that Fergus Falls has that reality. It wouldn't surprise me that your ALC that I visited and spoke at, that the vast majority of students in your ALC, also the highest culture represented there is Native American. Doesn't surprise me, folks. And the question that we ask is, why aren't they making it in your rooms? Why aren't they making it in this Tier 1 general education system? Why is it? I just met one of your colleagues here, retired, coming back, and she said, man, I don't know if you said this out loud, but I wish I had this 40 years ago when I was, learning and working with students and among folks. I get it. But why is it that Native students are also the highest represented in special education, especially in the EBD area, and oftentimes OHB, which just gives us a reason to qualify them? Why is that the fact, folks? What is up with this population? Because I tell you, you guys pump out graduates here from Fergus Falls. They are going to Harvard. They are, oh my gosh, many of you likely graduated from this school system, right? It's a beautiful system. It works. And yes, it works as designed, folks. American education by design was to reach 80% of the population. Since it was created in the 1930s, and by the way, our problem here is that we haven't changed much since 1930. Same type of calendar, the farmer calendar, same type of schedule, right? It was monumental at the time. The world followed our education system, and now the world has passed us, folks, because they have gone away from some of the systemic things that we do. But we still capture about 80% of our population. That 80% of your students, that is actually the perfect lesson, folks. 80% of your class for every lesson you do. I know we want a gun for 100. That's what we do. We want every one of them, right? But folks, the reality is that if you could get 80%, hey, I will take that number any day. The other 10, we might need some differentiation, okay? They might need, maybe they can't read. By the way, most Native American students, everywhere I go, average 2 to 3 grade levels behind. You have 11th graders right now that are likely at a 3rd grade reading level. I can tell you that for a fact, okay? Huh? Yeah. But here's the deal, folks. Yeah, another 10%, maybe a little higher, right? Maybe a little GT, right? They need some other differentiation, but that's what our system is founded on, and it works for the vast majority. Unfortunately, for the Native American student, it just has not. And that was the case for me too, right? It took me a long time. I often say, I graduated twice. I really did, because in Canada at the time, we had graduated grade 12, right? And then if you wanted to go to university, you had to graduate grade 13. That was the last year of 1990 that happened. I was like, man, why did they wait so long? But anyways, but folks, that is the reality. So I appreciate what you shared here, and I'm just gonna kind of scroll a little bit, just because I'm nosy, and I'm gonna share this. And here's just some things. Lots of things that you all shared. Lots of stuff in here. This is good foundational data right there, folks. That's good stuff, okay? We're not gonna dig in too much with that today, but it's for another day. I guarantee you there's some good things there to start launching us. Hey, PLCs, here's some stuff that we talked about. Here's some stuff to maybe think about. Here's a little question, just sort of talk about it a little bit and let's keep moving. That's what we need to do with this stuff, folks. Just like we need to answer some of the rationale of what I just shared. Oops. Right here. I don't know what it is. A little off. I forgot my wallet at home, and I forgot to take all my meds. I don't know what the heck the deal is. One of those days, huh? Holy smokes. But hey, folks, Bushu, everybody. Rikin Indigenous. Oh, I hear some Rickies. I know there's a Ryan Indigenous out there, right? You know, so a little reminder to all of you from January when we unpacked a little bit about introducing yourself into language. But the reality is, folks, that right here in Minnesota, in White Earth as well, I know Rob Tibbetts, I know Mike Dahl, I know he speaks. I know there's others, but there's not many others. Right? Red Lake, you'd have to go to Panema, Minnesota. It's kind of the home of Ojibwe, but even there, 70 and up are probably about the only ones. There's a couple here and there, you know. Anton Schroyer, he learned later in life. He's still an academic language speaker, beautiful speaker, absolutely beautiful, brilliant. One of the few that have done that component. What is going on? It's just been disrupted, folks. This is why I shared this with you. Bonjour, Rikin Indigenous, Fargo, Nindu Jiba, Gigawab Minmana, Miwach. Our simple greeting. Every little bit that you can put in, folks, gives us a little more of our self-esteem, whether we want it or not. Because this is still the reality. This is our state data here, folks. Came directly from our capital. Our capital that houses an office, like I've shared, murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls, has an office in our capital. Okay? And this is what it is to be born Native, right here. Okay? Why the 80%, folks? This is the ongoing of what our people are born into. Okay? Yeah, I know you were just as, shocked in January as you are today, because nothing has changed, folks. Nothing has changed. This is still the reality. Okay? We're seeing a little more in the news. I just saw another young boy, okay, missing out of Bemidji. Okay? I saw a young girl just last year who was lured on the bank of the Red River, who was murdered last year, middle school girl. Okay? Oh yeah. We see it in the news a little bit, but we don't see a lot of this. Okay? Yeah, this is right from our state. And it goes right into our homes, folks. So I get asked the question all the time, Ricky, don't you people love your kids? Don't you want the best for your kids? This is all we see. This is all that you are right now. Don't you love your kids? What is wrong with you guys? Why is it that now your children who are having kids, that the likelihood that this is going to be them is absolute? I promise you it is. Why? Why? Why, folks? This is America. Hey? How do we begin to fix this? Folks, yeah, creating a little belonging and healthy belonging is a good start. This is thousands of year-old intel, and I've shared this with you before. Your colleague, Jeff, in Fargo Schools, Rupak Gandhi shared this with his staff last year. This very thing. He shared, he said, we need to keep our focus on belonging here in Fargo Schools. It was August 22nd, I remember the date. And he said to all the staff, I gathered our students, leadership students from Fargo Schools, and I said, okay, here's what we are focused on in Fargo Schools. These 4 big things, right? Where do we start on the medicine wheel? On the east. It starts with respect. But it's not just that word on the wall that you're going to respect me here. I'm the teacher. You're going to respect me. I'm the adult in the room. You will do as you're told. You will listen to me. Folks, whoo, I'm already out the door. Because, by the way, that's all I hear at home, too. It's mutual respect. I often say to groups, folks, my main job is to earn your respect today. I'm not going to demand it. And in earning it, It's how we end up treating each other. That basic humanity of how good we're going to treat each other. That's the foundation. We can work through problems even with that foundation. That's what we mean by respect. The active, functional behavior of what respect is. That's what we're going to do. And then we're going to support you with whatever it is going on. We're going to support you. We're going to make sure that you feel supported when you are here. You're going to be accepted. Yeah, I talked some acronyms, some people that think a little differently than maybe you do on stuff. You know? Yeah, it's here. It's probably in this room. I can bet it is. Right? We have these things, these differences, but we're still going to work together on a common goal. That's educating these young people the best that we can. We got to be very careful that we don't plant our political stamp on them, though. We're going to say some stuff. That's sometimes what happens. We talk about current events, so we might talk about stuff. We might even say the name Charlie Kirk. Hey? Oh yeah, see some heads pop up. Fargo Schools had it on their agenda. They ended up naming it Horace Mann, a brand new school, but one of the names was Charlie Kirk. Holy moly, was there some massive discontent with that. And folks, once again, it's not my job to tell you right from wrong. It's not my job to tell you, in terms of that political context, how you should think. But I know it still gets us going. What I will tell you is that there was a man who was murdered and assassinated on TV. And his kids are going to be able to see that for the rest of their life. That's what I know. Yeah. I may disagree with most everything that that guy said. I'm not even saying that. But I know that in the deepest of humanity, that was wrong. What happened? Nobody. I wouldn't want that on anybody. You know? Nobody. That's where we gotta get to, folks. Because I know it was still celebrated in many ways because of how much we disagree. Right? And folks, this is what I'm talking about. Okay? That when we get to building healthy belonging, that this is also another way of understanding, knowing that these Native students, yes, they've got stuff going on, but we might want to dig in a little bit and get understanding what their path, what is impacting their functional behavior to get to the point to where they are with you. Let's dig in with that humanity a little bit. That's what we mean by accepted and included as well in all of this. Because this would be another rubric for me. If I'm not here to evaluate how you all feel like you belong in this district, but I can certainly do this with all of you. How many of you feel respected, supported, accepted, and included in your school, in your district? Be something to say, okay? And depending on the moment, you know, man, Jeff should have called school off today. There's going to be stuff that is going to impact the manner in which you're going to answer that question, isn't it? Right? Right, folks. You got to get the full picture. Okay? But there's no harm in checking in. Because you know what happened with Rupak Gandhi? When he told his staff, and he did gather his group of leadership students from many different cultures, and he said to them, this is our focus in our school district. I would like you all, or any of you, to stand if you feel like our school district does this for you. And you know what he told all the staff? Just like I said before, all the white kids stood up and not one black or brown kid stood. Okay? And he said to the audience, does that mean that our district is a bunch of racists? No. Does it mean that we have a little bit of work to do? Yeah. Yeah. That's what we call cultural competence, folks. Having exposure to these things. To say that other people might think, behave, and act a little differently maybe than you. But ultimately, we still have a responsibility, don't we, as educators? We still need to teach right from wrong. And it is wrong to hate. It is wrong to yell, shout, scream, and fight, and swear. That behaviorally, functionally, that's not something that we should be doing. Yeah, functional behavior. There is not even a gray line on that, right? We've got to have the highest of standards and expectations for how that's going to be here. Otherwise, we're in a bigger trouble, folks. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, we could dig in a little more with understanding. And I call it also cultural IQ with this stuff. Okay? Let's tone and tailor and get exposed to our cultural IQ so that we maybe behave a little differently the next time we see some smudging in amongst our presence. Because most places that I go and I smudge, oh boy, do I have the cops, the principals running there saying, who's smoking marijuana over there again? Right? You know, that's again, their cultural intelligence in action. I'm not saying it's stupid or dumb. They just don't know what they don't know yet with this. So let's get to that level to where we're giving you some tools to better understand what's happening. Okay? Better understand what's happening. Yeah, this is real. Yeah, when I was in your chair, Jeff, as a superintendent, primarily Native students, I wondered, what the heck is the deal? Like, do our families really not love our kids that much? So I put to the test this 30 million word gap, training that we received as a school as part of our trauma-informed care training, which said that many students, marginalized kids, they likely have this reality, a 30 million word gap, meaning how many words they are hearing an hour, and of course, what is also being shared with them. And this is primarily in the home. So I did this, I put this to the test, Ryan. I went into the homes of our families, and I just sat and I listened, and I heard barely 60 to 300 words happening in those homes, and there was a lot of Effenheimers, barely any conversation at times, but I guarantee you there was not a very positive functional behavior being taught and nurtured in those homes. And you see how the kids are performing. You see their attendance rates. You see their behavior rates. You see their own functional behavior in the school. Mimics that too, okay, right there. The houses that were still marginalized, like totally poor people, but the houses that I walked into, and I could almost get a sense of it just walking into the place. The tidy, the care, the little that they had, and then the conversations. I counted the words, 1,500 and up. 1,500 to 3,000 words. And it was loving, caring, hey, let's take care of this, or, you know, did you have any problem, like problem solving, just totally saturated with that kind of conversation. That 5-to-1 ratio was active in those homes, and those same kids dominating it in school, okay? But the vast majority, and I'm talking again, 8 out of 10 families that I visited, big time gap. So there's a real reality of functional behavior that is not happening within our homes. Why? Does that mean we don't love our kids? Folks, once again, massive disruption and interruption to our own ways of life. Our beautiful teachings that we have. These guys, I'm working with schools right now who in their PBIS plan, Positive Behavior Intervention Supports and Systems, they are integrating the 7 grandfather teachings. That way every class, every staff member, and by the way, all of them are white, is using this language when teaching functional behavior in their classrooms and in their school, right? Because the Native American teachings and this way of life, guys, it is a story. That's why we have animals that are represented in the words that are listed under each grandfather teaching. That the word for respect, when you think of it, that buffalo, the buffalo gave us everything. The way that they corralled and had a community, everybody together, right? You know, there's functional behavior there, folks. I wish the grandfather teachings were alive in our homes, but the reality is that they are not. And we are still some of the only population, Native people. Every community I go in, where there's Native peoples, on the res included, you'll see things, advertisements, positive parenting, Native positive parenting classes. Like the only people that I know that need help with parenting. You see, folks, there were generations. And when I say generations, if we were in a room full of Native people, and I know there's a couple in here, if you were born Native, you likely had a historical past that goes back a couple hundred years of lost parenting. Lost parenting. Meaning you likely did not even grow up with your parents. If You are like my sister's brother, her oldest brother, taken from the hospital in the infant care. This was part of the reality, I'll say, because critical race theory is illegal in North Dakota. So I can't say that the government or organizations had an embeddedness of racism as part of their functional outputs when it comes down to it. So in North Dakota, I gotta say that I can't say that there. But here's the deal, folks. 60 scoop. Melody's brother was taken right from the hospital like thousands of other babies. And this was common practice for decades. So any of you that have children, if you were born native, and this was in, let's just say from 1850 to, well, Mike, he's, this is very recent, right through to 1970, there would have been a risk that your kid would have been taken out of the hospital, put on a train, shipped off somewhere. He ended up in Chicago, and in an auditorium similar to this, but it was called a church, lined with good people who wanted to start a family, right? And said, okay, I'll take that one. Literally, folks, that's how it happened. Thousands of children taken, okay? That's a reality when I talk about the disconnect. Now, did Mike come out okay? He's okay, but there's still a lot of stuff that's still planted in the midst of that guy's chaos, right? He still lives on, he's on food stamps now, lives in a hotel, Yeah, he had some good family stuff, but there's something in him that just did not quite make it. That was a reality, folks, of what happened. 60 scoop. Also, forced sterilization of women for decades. That happened to Native people, okay? So when we look at our functional parenting, massive disruption, folks. And what was replaced? I think of that guy that was lost at sea, Columbus, 500 years ago, landed here. Lots of colonization since then. We're all here now, right? And in the midst of it, when we think of when he landed, there were some, and this is an estimate, 10 million Native people that lived here on this land called America. They don't know for sure. Could be 100 million, right? I'm guessing it was a big number. The reality is, folks, 1930, we were down to 130,000. 130,000 left. Mass extermination. So when I say, even in North Dakota, because these same policies happened there, because that's where Melody's brother was born, was there in North Dakota. So when I say in North Dakota, I say, I cannot tell you that there was racist functions within our systems. I cannot say that out loud. You get what I'm doing here, right? My little play, right? But folks, there's some facts though, right? That was part of the system that was in place. And folks just carried in, that's just it. And by the way, Native people at the time, for hundreds of years, we weren't even considered human, folks. We were not considered civilized. We were not even considered in a mental capacity to be able to care for ourselves and our children. So that was the rationale behind all. Literally, written in context. That is the rationale, right? They're ugly Indians anyway, so do whatever you want with them, okay? That happened. Those things happened. And sometimes we gotta ask then, why this, folks? Why this? This is the intergeneration of what you are seeing being born into right here in Fergus Falls. This is what's landing on your doorstep. Okay? What can you do? Yeah, put this up. You're going to be loved here. We're going to take care of you here. We've got to be brave to say those things, folks. Because that's what the grandfather teaching is. When you talk about courage, that second one on the right there, it's not courage to fight. It's having the courage to do the right thing. Having the courage to know right from wrong, but also having the courage to be a good person. That is bravery in action. We teach that. But again, folks, almost null and void in our homes right now. We need help with this. Okay? We need help with this. This is part of the foundation of why Indian Ed for All. This is another thing that we know is going to help. Maybe not right now in this moment, because January I was here, and the same thing is the reality, folks, right? Maybe a little more work on this. Intentional work, intentional knowing, intentional IQ from all of you, that this stuff is, when they say simple, they were meant to be simple, these grandfather teachings. And every one of you can bring them into your work. I'll be safe to say, ChatGPT does a pretty good job with this too, right? You know? And there's the grandfather teachings in medicine wheel. I always start in the East, right? You know, we always start in the East, and I like to start with respect and love. Let's start there. Let's respect each other and let's treat each other well. Foundational grandfather teachings, right? But folks, yeah, it'd be very nice to help you. You want to help with that 80%? What I say to tribal nations, functional behavior, problem solving, is a foundational piece that we absolutely need some help with. It's going to take some time. We think about generation after generation. We're hoping it doesn't take that same amount of time to reverse, but just sending them to prison isn't working, folks. Native people, the highest represented in the prison system. No question about it. So what can we do? I got some rationale in here in the slide deck. But these are things that are now on your shoulders, folks. This is why I go back to this word, Jawendau, a way of life again. I wish our families would understand this word. I wish all of us would have a gravitation towards what the functionality of this word is, because this is what it was. Were we perfect? No. But we had a foundational, functional basis on how to act in these things. It wasn't violence like we see today. And we see violence, it's a colorless thing today, folks. And it is in the primal functional behavior area that we are the weakest in right now. You know, we're solving things with knives and guns. That's right here in Fergus Falls too, if you haven't seen the news, right? Yeah, right here. It's a colorless thing, right? We're jumping into white trucks and plowing people down Bourbon Street. Functional, problem-solving, behavioral weakness that we all have right now. We need some help. Just one word. I'm not saying to do this, but back in my principal days, we created the Z room. It wasn't the principal's office, it was our turnaround room, it was our restorative room. But a lot of the non-native teachers couldn't pronounce Jawendau too well, so we said, let's get the Z room. Everybody in the school knew what that was. And we actually had a time on it. We had a time of 8 minutes, because again, if I'm in the Z room at the time, I can't teach you math, science, social studies, you know, we need you back in the classrooms. Teachers, you also need to know that these kids need to be back with you. So that's part of our restorative mindset, is we also got to be ready. If I got told to F off, and I want this kid to have a public hanging and crucifixion, holy man, that's a young kid who might be having a tough time. We got to know and trust that they're getting restored somehow, because if that kid that did that winds up back on my doorstep in my class, then all I do is I say to him, you're back already? Like, what are we doing with this guy? We've ruined the entire timeline of trying to teach this guy. Yes, we might not even know the consequence, because there needs to be consequences. And yeah, I know that's a tough one, right? And especially if it was violent, like threatening with pure violence, like that word can do that, right? You know? Yeah, there's lines, guys. Yeah, we get it, drugs, like stuff like that. Yeah, we know. But when it's in dysfunctional behavior, and that's part of the dime, and we simply welcome back, okay, hey, we gotta fix it there though. There should be an exchange, a healing that happens there in that handoff, you know? But ultimately, hey, welcome back to class. We'll figure it out, man, you know? You missed some stuff, so just kind of get back in, you know, if you have an aid, you know, so might connect with you a little bit, but let me just finish my thing with the kids right now, and then I'll get back, and we'll get back on the right path, you know? Because everybody knows the guys screwed up, you know? But what are we really trying to do and teach? The blaming, shaming, guilting is going to ultimately fix. There's a lot of work we got to do. And I'm not saying coddle these kids either, right? Because I know that that's part of this. But we all say, hey, somebody says, you know, tells you that get them out of here. And maybe so. Hey, I'm not kind of here to judge that shouldn't happen. we slipped on a case in point, you know, from our decency. But folks, there's some stuff we've got to work with, okay? That's part of our reality when we're thinking of this. Folks, yeah, Maslow is alive. Those bottom three is what's typically landing as your greatest challenge that you have in schools right now. Those bottom three, something interrupting them. And look at the top two, self-esteem. When your kids have self-esteem positive of sorts, even in the midst of the crapshoot that they got going on, if we can help them with that, hey, you're a good person, hey, you know, we're going to work and support you with this, we're going to work through that stuff, that's going to help them, folks. They're going to be ready to learn. That's where self-actualization happens. That's when they're going to be ready to learn. We do nothing with that, those bottom three are going to overpower everything. And unfortunately, those bottom three are everything that is in the way of where our people are. Folks, I want to ask you what your door looks like. What does your door look like? You know, your door aesthetically, I'm sure it's a beautiful door, decorated. That's not what I'm talking about. That too, folks. But what I'm talking about is that if I'm coming to your door, what does it look like once that door is open? What is the human that I'm coming into? What is the environment that I'm coming into? I want to ask you that question when you learn and hear about Robbie Adamson, these guys. You see, folks, the Robbie Adamson story, last 11, 12 minutes here of my time. This is a story of me, Ricky White. It starts December 24th, 1983. I was 12. December 24th, it's coming. We all know it. Christmas Eve. Next day, presents. Beautiful time. Beautiful family time, right? Ricky was awakened at about 2 in the morning. Likely, again, I knew why. My dad went home drunk, probably from the bar again. Eh? You know? And the ruckus that I heard in my house, folks, the destruction that I heard in my house. I'd heard and felt a little bit of it, but I was also the baby in the family. But what I remember is as I came through and I looked, by the way, no electricity, no running water in our house. That was every house on the res. I remember the wood stove, I remember the candlelight, and I remember seeing my twin sisters, Sheila and Shelley, holding back this massive guy, my dad. I could see them. I could see my older brother Warren holding them back. And as he kind of threw them aside like bowling pins, I remember where he was going. Okay? I remember where he was going. And I looked over and I could see my mom. And as I saw my mom, I remember vividly like it's right now, just like the woman that I talked to this morning, still seeing the scars on her face from that night. I remember what she did. Okay? She took off her glasses. And folks, I'm not going to describe, but I see it right now. What I witnessed, that common event. Yeah. We didn't have Christmas that year. Didn't see Dad much from that point on, actually. And it was decided, because that's December, that the next year that I was going to move to a local town. Literally like a kid from White Earth moving here to Fergus Falls. Same distance, pretty much. And I remember that same thing happened with me. And I was going to move with my mom. And I remember as a 13-year-old now, May 30th is my birthday, now it's June, I remember being a very angry young boy. Really, really angry. I remember that none of this felt like, here we go. None of this felt active to me. What's going on here? Must be saying, Ricky, your time's almost up. None of this felt active for me. Instead, all I feel like that I was knowing and feeling was this, whether I knew it or not. And that anger, folks, was directed primarily at one person. It was my mom. Totally angry at my mom. Why didn't you take me here to this town, Fergus Falls? It was Kenora at the time, Kenora, Ontario, northern part of Lake of the Woods. Why did you take me here? Why did you take me away from my family, my friends, the res, and what did you do to Dad to make him do that to you? I said that out loud many times. including F words and everything else. That was our functional reality in the home, folks. And I remember one day, she asked me to come outside. We didn't talk much, folks. Talk about 30 million word gap, there was hardly anything happening. And my anger was mostly where it was. Her demeanor, sadness. See it right on her face. But I remember one day she asked me, come on outside. And I went outside and sure enough, there was a brand new bike. Brand new bike out there. I'm like, is that one? I think she was bribing me a little bit, but she presented me with the brand new bike. Then she presented me with my first piece of technology, right? A Sony Walkman. A Sony Walkman, right? You know, back in the day, we had Walkmans and things called cassette tapes, right? You know, and she, of course, my mom, she's never bought another album or cassette tape or CD ever again in her life. She wouldn't even know where to go with it. But so I'm sure when she bought the Walkman, I'm sure it was just the artist of the year right there that she bought. Cyndi Lauper. Right, you know, Cyndi Lauper, right? You know, she had pink hair, blue hair today, I think, right? You know, and I remember listening to that tape and song for hours, right? Girl, just wanna have fun, right? Time after time, you know, listening to them for hours. And I remember one day, guys, there was a little bit of healing. It was temporary, though. But I remember one day I decided I'm just gonna take off. And I rode my bike away from home. Summer, beautiful day. And as I look back, folks, I could see my mom in that window. Same face I saw today, only this one was still bruised from the 6 months prior. It was still all there. And I remember the look on her face, the sadness. But you know what, Ricky? I'm 13. I know it all, right? And I remember I just took off. You deserve, right? All this misery. And I took off riding, and we didn't just move to town, though. It would be like I moved to, I don't know from here, but 16 miles away from here, but 16 miles away is where we actually moved to, north of Kenora on this bush road. And I remember riding my bike on that bush road, guys. And I remember meeting probably 6, 7 semis, as many as I saw on the road here today coming from Fargo. And I remember at least half of them thinking, I'm gonna turn back into them. I'm gonna just end it. I've known this, you know, Uncle, not Uncle Tom, Uncle Jimmy, you know, hung himself. I just recently lost a few good friends, you know, to suicide. You know, hey, just gonna do that. That happened in my head, I can't tell you how many times on that little bike ride. But you know what, I figured I'm gonna go check it out. So I rode my bike around Kenora, Fergus Falls. And you know what, folks, I could not have been more disconnected. Nobody in town waved at me. Nobody acknowledged me, you know. I'm riding this bike, Cyndi Lauper. I'm thinking this is a great place. Nope, nothing. I hated this place already. And I'm thinking I'm gonna take off. But just as I was ready and set to take off, I saw out on this baseball field, I saw a baseball floating up in the air. I'm like, I'm gonna go check this out. So I rode my bike up there, and sure enough, there were 5 boys playing ball. Looked to be about my age. And what did Ricky do, right? I'm in grades, just loitered, parked my bike up there, and the one guy, he's behind the plate. This is my Robbie Adams story, folks. He cracks the ball, and he kind of looks back at me. We do one of these, you know. And he gets in there and he cracks the ball again. Only this time, that guy walked all the way around, and he came up to me and he says, hey, we're short some players. You want to play? And I'm like, yeah, right? And the guy reaches out his hand and he says, my name's Robbie Adamson. That's Troy Carlson, that's Kyle Ferguson, right? You know, that's Ryan Raynard, and there's Chad Walston. Come and play. Folks, I had a blast. Beautiful day. All of a sudden, 4:30 hits. We're done. We're done. We got to go home and have dinner with our families. I'm like, you guys are nuts. No, we got to go home and have dinner with our families. So I'm like, all right. But before we leave, right, Robbie says, hey, come down and see my house. I want you to pick me up tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock. It's a beautiful day. We're going to play ball again. I'm like, all right. We go down and see his house, and it's a 2-story house. And I'm like, whoa, you must be rich. You know, no 2-story houses on the res. He's like, I ain't rich. My dad's a cop, and mom's, you know, works at the clothing store downtown at the mall. You know, I ain't rich. I'm like, oh, all right. But anyway, 8 o'clock tomorrow, Ricky. I'm like, all right. Rode my bike home, 16 miles. As I got closer to our house, there's my mom like she hadn't left. We had no telephone, folks. We We had no Snapchat, no social media. She had no clue where I was for about 8 hours. And I remember her face just absolutely demoralized. That same spirit. You know what grandmother taught me? She said, you want to help somebody? Give them this. Okay? Start with a smile. Go back to that basic humanity. Folks, when I gave my mom that smile, like a shower of relief over that woman. Still bruised and battered, eh? But all of a sudden, a shower of relief. Hope, almost. Just from that behavioral interaction. I went in and I talked to her, I said, hey, I met some buddies. All of a sudden now there's more positive words, communication happening in our house. It's beautiful. The next day, right, 8 o'clock, where's Ricky the next day? I'm already at Robbie's house. Already, like 7 in the morning, I'm at Robbie's house across the street, right, you know, around this tree, waiting for lights, everything to come on in the house, right? I'm not kidding, I'm in the bush across the street. Road to 16 miles already, no problem, right? Lights come on, I'm like, all right, here we go. Rode my bike across the street, right? You know, parked my bike right upside Robbie's house. Remember, he had a deck to go to his front door. I got to his front door, and I walked right into his house, right? Walked right into Robbie's house. And there's his mom, right, Linda. She's in her pink all around her head like, who the heck is this boy, you know? And what's Ricky doing? Grandma said, just smile. Hey, you know, smiling braids and all, right? You know, I'm here, ha! Right? Next thing you know, Sergeant Bob Adamson comes out. You know, oh man, full uniform. Sits at the head of the table and he's like eyeballing me like, who in the hell are you, boy? I can read his mouth, his eyes, right? You know, and the rest Ricky, I'm just smiling. Next thing you know, Sister Corrine comes out, Brother Ryan and Robbie, and I can hear them talking, you know, and he's saying, yeah, this is my buddy Ricky, blah, 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 blah. On our way to play ball, Robbie pulls me aside and he says, hey, Rick, you gotta knock before you come in. I had no clue. Back home on the rest, folks, we didn't have, a lot of us didn't have doors on our homes, blankets. And everyone knew everybody. You were welcome in every home. They knew who you were. You were welcome. Come in, have some food if you'd like. Had no clue about this cultural norm, about this expectation of my primal behavior. I had no clue. I'm like, okay. We played ball all day. 4:30, Robbie and the guys were like, we're done. We are done. We got to go home and have dinner with our family. Are you guys nuts? It's beautiful. Nope. We got to go home and have dinner with our families. Like, yeah, all right. But Robbie says to me, hey, another day tomorrow, Ricky. Come on back. Come on back. It's going to be beautiful. Pick me up 8 in the morning. I'm like, all right. This time I ride my bike home. There's my mom. And this time I'm over my handlebars laughing. Man, we're having some good conversations. And at that point, my mom's telling me, yeah, there's some things you're going to have to know about your new world. You know, we'll figure them out. We'll figure them out together. Hey, don't get mad at them. Maybe learn from them. You know, just figure it out. We're going to be okay. There's like hope in my home now. Next morning, where am I? Right? It's 11 o'clock. Hey, we're almost done here, folks. I'm already across the street at Robbie's house. Right? You know, it's like 7 in the morning, still dark, you know. Lights come on. I figured I better wait, right? I walked in on Linda in her pink robe, so I better wait. So I waited. Next thing you know, rode my bike over the road. Parked my bike up across, you know, right upside the house. Got to Robbie's house. Knocked on the door, and I walked right into his house. Right? Did as I was told. This time the whole family, they're eating breakfast. And this time Ricky, I grabbed the house, poured myself some juice, and I'm like, hey, all right. Yeah, you know, this time Robbie's like, I got this, Mom. He came over to me, pulled me aside, and he says, hey, Rick, when you knock, you gotta wait for someone to answer. You gotta wait for someone to answer. I had absolutely no clue, folks. I did not come to that new community with everything planted in my head on what was expected of me, on how to function, on how I was going to learn. None of that was pre-programmed. I had no clue. I grew up in a world that was not part of that practice, right? So folks, you have learners who in the same way may not know what's going on in your space. So I ask you, what does your door look like? What good humanity are you going to share with them? There's my sandlot, folks. These guys, this was a few summers ago. 2 summers ago, actually. Sorry, 3 summers ago. That's Troy Carlson on the left. He's now Chief of Police, Southern Ontario. That's Robbie right there, right next to him. I'm actually going to see him. First time in 32 years, I'm going to see him. I'm emceeing a powwow in Portage la Prairie. But you know what? I talked to him. Just like I'm going to call him on my way from this amazing place. I tell him, hey, Robbie, you're famous again, brother. So we talk on the phone. But it's going to be my first time seeing the guy in 32 years. Because when you have good relations, you're going to pick up just where you left off. This is why I say to teachers all the time, folks, what you teach is important. How you teach it, even more critical. And even more critical to remember 2 things. Raise the self-esteem, teacher attitudes. The teachers that I remember, folks, are the ones that treated me really good. I can't remember what they taught me, but I remember how I felt when I came into their spaces. What does your door look like, folks? You got learners coming back to you. We're going to be celebrating Thanksgiving. Many of them won't even have a meal this weekend. Okay? Many of them, you never know. Maybe a little Robbie Adamson story happening. Okay? Yeah, you can bet on it. Folks, this is the reality. Ryan Raynard's the mayor of Kenora, right there. Kyle Ferguson, he's actually a principal down in Southern Ontario. Chad Walston was here, but he's a pilot and had to fly off. Ricky should have been here. But we talk about our intergenerational stuff, folks. I was busy burying my brother Ryan. Yeah, on this day, this Saturday that they took that photo. Ryan, same age as me, born June 7th, 1971. We don't share the same mom and dad. But Native Ways of Life, our generational family is extended. Any of our grandparents, or any elder for that matter, is like our grandparents. Our aunts and uncles are like our parents. Our parents, like Ryan was to me, Ryan White, those ones that you grew up with, literally like your siblings. And we could live and likely stay with any of them at any time. This is why when you look at your native population, they might be staying with grandma once, grandma here. You could literally call that a homelessness indicator, and it is to some degree based on where our families are today. Not saying it's good or healthy, but that is part of the survival rate. And on this day, I had my hair cut. This was actually a week later, folks. So another teaching for you. If you see me with my hair braid cut, short, whatever, it isn't just a haircut. It's likely that the person has lost somebody. So think about that with your learners, especially if they're native. Dig in. Hey, it's not what's wrong with them. If they're misbehaving, just on a tantrum, whatever, remember what happened. And what does your door look like, folks, to make that healing? So this was my haircut at my kitchen table when this whole thing happened. And folks, I can't have you leave here. I know it's 11:05. I know we got started a little late. This is the boarding school era. And I can't have you leave here thinking and believing that my dad was such a monster. He was my hero. One of the greatest men that I've known. And he died at age 55. And he had the worst of all guilt over that behavior. And of course, he struggled with alcohol. And again, we could all look at him, and I said the same thing. What's wrong with you? And I'd often say, why can't you get rid of the booze? And he would say to me, son, when my eyes close at night, and when they awaken in the morning, I have guilt. I'm like, guilt? And he said, yes, guilt. You see, my dad was brought up and born, just like many generations of your native students, for over 100 years. 130 years, boarding school era existed right here in this area. Fergus Falls, just like every community in America, sent native children to these boarding schools. Right? It happened. They were sent. You had no choice. It was part of policy, folks. We're going to kill the Indian and save the man. Here's your original superintendent right here, Colonel Richard Pratt. And by design, over 500 of these schools existed, folks. And most every one of these schools had a cemetery by it. Imagine your beautiful high school here having a cemetery beside it. And who's buried? The kids that you teach, the kids that you disagree with, the kids whose culture and existence needed to be erased from this place. If they talked about it, they punished them. They spoke their language, they were punished. That's what happened to my dad. He was also sexually abused for nearly the entirety of his time until he was 18. And he did not get to go home. When we say there's been an interruption to our functional behavior and the functionality of our homes and our families, folks, yeah, you just need to look at this era. This isn't the only thing, but this would be the culprit of interruption and disruption to that slide that shares so much of our data on who we are in our existence. We need to know this, folks. Not to say, because I have to say it this way too, folks. 90%, if not closer to 100% of these schools were also led by the church. Yeah. So it was nuns and priests that carried out this. And you will hear horror stories in there. And we know this already, right? We know this already. The Pope has even apologized already for the atrocities of the boarding school. The Pope has apologized for the sexual abuse that happened for hundreds of years in the midst of these schools. So it's not to say, we cannot just simply say, oh, that didn't happen. You know, Holocaust didn't happen. It did. I can tell you. My dad was in these schools, and again, a functional alcoholic. And he said to me, when my eyes close at night, when he gave me his rationale, and when they awaken in the morning, I am struck with guilt. Guilt because I could not protect my younger brothers and sisters from what was being done that I know was also being done to them. All my aunties lost their innocence. Okay? Again, Uncle Jimmy hung himself, 1982. Folks, the reality of how this will impact you, most of you in here could probably never know. And those of you that do, you know the challenges. Imagine that on the largest scale. This entire community of ours in here, and 8 out of 10 of us have this as our experience, our known experience. The other 2, you just don't even know it, but it's there. Yeah, right there, folks. And we wonder why Indian why do you have Ricky on a day like today when it could have been a snow day? You know, challenges of you getting here. You know, and we look back and we reflect at everything shared with you today. Just a little taste again, folks. I know it was a little odd, a little different, eh? You know, but when we apply Native American best practices, it's mostly that you are going to know this. And then I ask again that final question: what does your door look like? Because we need you all, and the only way to really get you to help is to expose you to this stuff. In here are the top 10 right now. And it's really just using this stuff. It's really just, right, making this part of your cultural IQ, putting it into action. You know, I'm not here to judge you and say, oh, you don't know how to introduce yourself in Ojibwe. We did that in January. Hey, folks, I get it. We're all busy. And as we look at this population, but so many others, what's good for Native American children is good for everybody. I'll say this, as you have your plan to address those students that are struggling in your schools, everything that I just shared with you is another play into how we can shift a lot of that. We saw it's simple in context, but we got to get to the root of it on how we treat each other, folks. And so I'm just deeply honored, folks, that you allowed me to have. I have this slide there again. I'm a professor at NDSU. Just, I know some of you have taken the course. There's my contact info. I would welcome. I'll welcome a call anytime. You know, I Zoom into classrooms all over the United States and Canada, almost every day, and I enjoy doing this stuff, folks. This is what I've been tasked to do for this time of where I'm at. And so when we wonder about that 80%, we've been given a little taste of what it is, how we can help. Because yeah, you did a little bit of work on that, right? You know, little chat GPT, little pieces here and there. But knowing is very powerful. And so as we leave here today, I want to share a song. The word in the song primarily is miigwech. Thank you. Miigwech inata. Let's say thank you to each other. We have Thanksgiving coming. Okay? You know, let's start there, right? It's a good way. So here's the song, and again, like I shared before, just sit back and then it'll be good. Here's the song. Again, yes, thank you all. I'm not sure where you're going now. Are they dismissed, or where are you going there, huh, Jeff? Yeah, okay, so you guys are in here. Is there another presenter, or who's here? But anyways, folks, I want to thank you all for giving me your time, for trusting me a little bit here. I know it's always hard to end. That's what I always say. I don't know how to end these things, but I just did, so enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe, be cautious, and again, thank you all for digging in with me here with Native American best practices. Miigwech, everybody, one last time. Give yourselves a round of applause. Miigwech again for being here with me. Miigwech. I'm gonna stick around, and then we'll kind of move forth. What's the timing? Oh, quick empathy meeting? Oh.